Good morning, sir. Can you see and hear us?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. May I recall Jarnail Singh, please?
Yes. Two things, Mr. Beard. Does Mr. Singh need to be resworn? I take it that he does.
Yes, I think so, because I think last time you released him essentially from the prohibition, and therefore it'd be better that he be resworn.
Right, well, let's deal with that first then, please.
I swear by Guru Nanak.
I swear by Guru Nanak
That the evidence I shall give.
that the evidence I shall give
Shall be the truth.
shall be the truth,
The whole truth.
the whole truth,
And nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Please do take a seat, Mr. Singh.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I take it there's one other matter that I should deal with, Mr. Beer. Mr. Singh, on the last occasion, I hope you will remember that I gave you what's called the warning about self-incrimination.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Fully expect that you understand the legal significance of that. Would you like me to repeat that warning to you, or are you content that the warning I gave you last time gives you sufficient information?
So I'm entirely in your hands. If you want to give it, I don't mind, or if you don't want to, that's fine as well.
All right, well, I think out of an excess of caution, I will repeat it since it's some months since you gave evidence. As you probably know, Mr. Singh, under our law, a witness at a public inquiry has the right to decline to answer a question put to him by any of the lawyers, or for that matter, me, who are asking questions. This legal principle is known in shorthand form as the privilege against self-incrimination. I consider, Mr. Singh, that fairness demands that I remind you of that principle before you resume your evidence. However, I should make it clear that it is for you to tell me in respect of any question put to you if it is your wish to rely upon the privilege. If, therefore, any questions are put to you by any of the lawyers who ask you questions, or by me, which you do not wish to answer on the ground that to answer might incriminate you, you must tell me immediately after such question is put. At that point, I will consider your objection to answering the question and thereafter rule upon whether your objection should be upheld. Am I right in thinking that you are represented here either by counsel or a solicitor?
Yes, sir.
Then if the issue relating to self-incrimination arises, they will assist you if you wish, and if at any stage during the questioning you wish to consult your lawyer about the privilege, you must tell me so that I can consider whether that is appropriate.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Singh. Over to you, Mr. Beer.
Thank you, sir. Before I begin to ask questions, can I apologise for the state of my voice, and if it breaks at any stage. I've got the flu, and so if I become inaudible at any time or go into a sneezing fit, that's the reason. Mr. Singh.
Yeah. Pay some attention to the state of your health as well, Mr. Beer.
Yeah, will do, sir. Mr. Singh, thank you very much for returning to give evidence to the inquiry today. You kindly, in the interim, made an additional witness statement. Can we turn that up, please? It's WITN 0475 0200, and you should have the hard copy in front of you. It's 42 pages long. If you turn to the 42nd page, is that your signature?
Oh, sorry. Statement 2. Sorry. Yeah. Yes. Yes, it is.
And are the contents of that true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Thank you. You can put that to one side. The witness statement can come down. There's one aspect of your professional background that I didn't address on the last occasion, and I should now, and it concerns your knowledge and experience of Scottish law. Can you confirm that you're not qualified in Scots law?
No, I'm not, sir.
And so far as you're aware, was anyone else in the Royal Mail Group legal team, or when it became Post Office legal team, qualified in Scots law?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Thank you very much. Can I turn then to the substance of the questions I want to ask you today? And the first concerns whether there was a cover-up by the Post Office. Were you, Mr. Singh, involved from July 2013 onwards in a cover-up of your own prior knowledge and the Post Office's prior knowledge of the existence of bugs, errors and defects in Horizon?
No, sir.
Specifically, did you in fact have knowledge before July 2013 of the existence of bugs, errors and defects in Horizon?
Not to my knowledge, no.
But you sought to cover up that knowledge because you knew that it ought to have been disclosed in criminal proceedings, but had not been disclosed?
No, sir.
Specifically, did you know that others in the Post Office knew about the existence of bugs, errors and defects before July 2013, but sought to cover up that knowledge because you knew that that knowledge ought to have been disclosed into criminal proceedings, but had not?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
And did you specifically pretend that the first you and the Post Office knew about such bugs, errors and defects was when they were revealed by the second site report of the 8th of July 2013?
No, not to my knowledge, no.
I'm going to begin this topic by looking at what you have said over time about your knowledge of bugs, errors and defects. And then I'm going to turn to what I suggest the documents show as to your real knowledge. Can we start, please, with poll 302-9744? This is the second site interim report of the 8th of July 2013. And you're familiar with this. You tell us in your witness statement that you received a copy of this report and you read it, yes?
Can you go right to the bottom of the page, please?
Yes, of course, if we scroll down. You want to go to the end of the document?
Yes, please. It's some time ago since I've seen it.
The end of the document is page 18. I was hoping to take this quite quickly, Mr. Singh. You tell us in your witness statement that you received a copy of this document, you read it, and you were concerned about the contents of it.
Yes, yes.
Right, good. Let's go back then to page 6. And if we look, please, in paragraph 6.5 down to 6.10, the second site report reveals the existence of, or speaks to the existence of 3 defects, as they're called. The first, in paragraph 6.5, the first defect referred to as the receipts and payments mismatch problem, affecting 62 branches, discovered in September 2010. 6.6, the second defect referred to the local suspense account problem, affected 14 branches. 6.7, unaware of the defect until a year after its first occurrence in 2011. And then 6.10, Poll has informed us that it is disclosed in witness statements to English courts information about one other subsequently corrected defect or bug in the Horizon software. That's a reference to the Calendar Square or Falkirk bug. Can we look at your witness statement, please? Page 15, paragraph 37. It'll come up on the screen for you. Page 15, paragraph 37, you say, I do not recall exactly when I received the second site interim report, but upon reading it, I remember being concerned, both in relation to its findings around bugs, but also the comments about training, etc. So you remember receiving it, reading it, and being concerned about its findings around bugs, yes?
Yes, I read it.
Thank you. Can we turn to poll 406375? It'll come up on the screen. This is Simon Clark's advice of the 15th of July, so it's a week later, 7 days later. Okay? This is the one concerning Gareth Jenkins. Can we turn, please, to page 10? And look at paragraph 28. And in this part of his advice, Mr. Clark says, having set out the law in relation to duties of disclosure and expert evidence, he then cites some paragraphs from the second site report that we've just looked at. Can you see that?
Yes.
He doesn't, in fact, cite the Calendar Square bug in paragraph 6.10, but that doesn't matter for present purposes. So he's saying, I've now been told about, I've now got the second site interim report, and these are the bugs that it's talking about. And if we go down, please, to paragraph 29, he says, as well as having got the second site report, there's some other information, other sources of information. On the 27th of June, Martin Smith of Cartwright King was telephoned by Post Office. There then ensued a number of conversations between Martin Smith and senior Post Office executives. The import of what Martin Smith was being told may be summarised thus. He was informed by Post Office that a report commissioned from Second Sight by Post Office and as yet unpublished indicated that Horizon may not be bug-free. There was much speculation as to the content of the Second Sight report. It appeared to the Post Office that some within the organisation had been aware of bugs affecting up to 30 offices, including some Crown Office branches. And then this, Jarnail Singh, head of criminal litigation, had been unaware and did not know how long the Post Office had known of the existence of the bugs, nor indeed who at Post Office had known. Two things. Firstly, is what is said there in that highlighted sentence accurate?
As far as I'm aware, sir, yes.
And secondly, can you help us as to the context in which Simon Clark would have been made aware of it? I.e. your state of knowledge and you saying that you had been unaware of the existence of bugs.
The only bugs that I was aware of, the ones that were mentioned in the case of Misra. I wasn't aware of any other bugs.
That's a very different thing to say, Mr. Singh. You just said that you were aware of a bug being raised in the case of Misra.
Those two bugs that Mr. Jenkins dealt with in his witness statement, that's the only ones I'm aware of. I wasn't aware of any other. My understanding was very limited in the sense that but apart from those two, I wasn't aware of any.
Which two bugs are you talking about?
The one mentioned in the Falkirk one.
The Falkirk Calendar Square one, yeah.
And the is it Castleton?
Sorry?
Castleton. The civil case.
That's the same one that was mentioned.
Oh, is it? I don't know, sir, but that's those are the only ones. I mean,
Okay, we'll call it a single for the moment because
Okay.
Calendar Square, Falkirk was
that-
mentioned in
yeah.
Castleton.
yeah.
Okay, so the only one you knew about was the one that was mentioned in the Castleton case, and which was the Calendar Square, Falkirk.
Yes, yes.
Okay, and so this is accurate here. Then you had been unaware of bugs which were summarised above there in the paragraphs 6.5 to 6.8.
Yes, certainly in the Misra case, there were different names, issues, all sorts of things. I mean, first experience I had of this was in the Misra case. I'm not aware of something that happened before or after.
Presumably, when you read this advice at the time, you thought, yes, that does accurately summarise my state of knowledge. That
Yes,
sentence there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can we move forwards, please? Poll 3040194. This is a document prepared by Cartwright King on the 5th of December 2013, and it summarises the process that had then been undertaken by Cartwright King to review some previous convictions. Can we look, please, at paragraph 4 on page 1, at the foot of the page, please? It says the second site interim report revealed that there had been 2 known defects in the Horizon system since the rolling out of the Horizon Online system from January 2010. These defects impacted on 76 branches and created both positive and negative discrepancies. And then paragraph 5 on page 2. Thank you. As a result of the second site interim report, it became apparent that some of the matters raised in the report might have been disclosable in criminal prosecutions mounted by the Royal Mail Group and Post Office, had these been known about by those considering disclosure in such cases. And so consistently with the second site advice, the Simon Clark advice of the 15th of July 2013, this is recording the fact that it was the second site interim report that revealed the existence of the 2 bugs, and these had not been known about by those considering disclosure in criminal cases.
I don't recollect me being made aware of them.
So this is all accurate, if what you're saying is correct, that you didn't know about the 2 other bugs, the receipts and payments mismatch bug and
no.
the local suspense account bug. They'd been
I don't remember them at all.
They'd been revealed by the second site report. Yes?
These matters, second site report or the dealings with them was dealt with by the working groups. It wasn't something I was involved in. But certainly from the Royal Mail prosecutions, apart from the Misra case, there was no case that I dealt with or I was made aware of by the head of criminal law of any other. And certainly even the disclosure was dealt with by the head of criminal law, and I wasn't made aware of that.
So this is accurate, that the 2 bugs were not known about you, and you were a person considering disclosure in some of the previous cases. You had conduct of them.
Well, I think my evidence from last time was that the disclosure was dealt with by the head of criminal law at that time, because I was away for September 2010.
Okay, I'm not going to go over that particular old ground again.
Yes, okay, fine.
Can we move forwards then to poll 00169386? This is an email exchange of the 8th of January 2015 between you and a number of senior individuals within Post Office about a request for an interview for the purposes of the upcoming BBC Inside Out programme. Okay? If we just scroll down, please, we can see your email there. If we just look at the foot of the page, we can see you sign it off, Jarnail, yes?
Yes.
And if we go back up to the top of this email, so BBC have asked for an interview for their Inside Out programme. And you say to Mr. Davis, I had a look at this. I'm concerned that the post office is entering dangerous territory. This situation is not straightforward and cannot be easily simplified in a couple of lines. Whilst Post Office wish to say that there are no systemic faults, the second site report, which has been disclosed to the defendants and their legal representatives, does mention 2 defects or bugs which give rise to 76 branches being affected by incorrect balances or transactions. The fact that the bugs manifested in more than one location could be described as systemic, but not system-wide. Accordingly, there are arguments over terminology used by Second Sight, and it is important from a criminal law perspective that the Post Office does not misrepresent the content of the Second Sight report. Not only has Second Sight's use of terminology given rise to potential arguments in relation to terms used by Second Sight, it also raises questions as to whether the Post Office knew of the existence of those bugs. If so, to whom at the Post Office Fujitsu communicated them? These were certainly not known to me at Post Office Legal until the day or so prior to the publication of the Second Sight interim report. The difficulty here is made worse by the fact that Gareth Jenkins, an employee of Fujitsu, has been making statements for use in criminal proceedings which made no reference to the very bugs which it is understood he told Second Sight about. People were prosecuted and pleaded guilty following the receipt of his statement, which implied no bugs had been found. Of course, it would be highly embarrassing for Post Office were it to be suggested that Fujitsu had informed some part of the Post Office and that information never reached the security team. Equally, it is embarrassing were it to be suggested that the Post Office were kept in the dark by such an important supplier such as Fujitsu. It follows that these are very difficult topics from a criminal law perspective. We can stop reading there. Do you agree that in this email you were suggesting that you were not aware of the 2 bugs, errors and defects mentioned by Second Sight until the day or so before the publication of the Second Sight interim report?
Well, once I was at Post Office Limited, my involvement was very limited. As I said to you before, a lot of these matters were dealt with by head of legal, general counsel, and working groups. A lot of this information is obtained from the advices and also discussions with the expert criminal agents, Cartwright King. This isn't something I formulated myself because I wouldn't have the experience or the knowledge of dealing with it. Even my experience at the Royal Mail Group criminal law team was very, very limited. The only case I dealt with, Misra, which dealt with these matters, I mean, I wasn't even sure as to what they were, bugs, defects, issues. And apart from those 2, I'm not aware of anything else. And that's here I'm highlighting across something that I found out subsequently or relied on somebody else.
I'll try again. Can we, in the second paragraph, highlight the second sentence? It also raises questions. And then the third line, those were certainly not known to me at the Post Office Legal until a day or so prior to the publication of the Second Sight interim report. And my question was, you were saying to senior individuals, senior management within the Post Office in this email, that you were not aware of the bugs, errors and defects identified by Second Sight in their interim report until a day or so before the publication of that report, weren't you?
So, but to the best of my knowledge, the only issues were those months mentioned in the case of Misra. Apart from that, I wasn't aware of anything else. The only information I have in this email is not from personal involvement in anything I dealt with. It was dealt with by working group and head of legal and the general counsel.
Mr. Singh, sorry to speak over you, but if you can please focus on the question. I think the answer is yes. You were saying in this email, because according to you it was the truth, that you were not aware of the bugs, errors and defects identified by Second Sight until a day or so before their publication of their report. And so this is true.
If you put it that way, sir, from memory, yes.
Right. So what you're saying here to poll senior management is that the two bugs, the receipts and payments mismatch bug and the local suspense account bug, were not known to you until a day before, or a day or so before the publication of the report.
Well, now, such time ago, I'm not really sure what the ins and outs of it is, but I think certainly my involvement or response to it was very late in the day, because I think there's in a long email. I came to him at the last minute, and I'm just responding to some of the information that's highlighted to me.
The second thing you're saying is that Mr. Jenkins had been making statements that contained no mention of the bugs, and yet he had told Second Sight about the bugs. You make that point, don't you?
I meant, yes,
Yeah.
in light of the Clark advice, yes.
So you're pointing the spotlight here towards Mr. Jenkins, aren't you?
I'm summarising the position as it was in year 2015.
And you say it would be embarrassing if it emerged that the post office had been informed of bugs by Fujitsu, but that information had not reached the security team. Why would it be embarrassing if it emerged that the post office had passed on information about the bugs to the post office, but that information hadn't reached the security team?
I can't remember what I was thinking when I prepared that, but it certainly was in my discussions with head of legal and the general counsel, and also Cartwright King, and then them discussing it with me as to the facts, because I wouldn't have a first-hand knowledge, and certainly I wouldn't have a first-hand knowledge in how to deal with these
Think
facts.
about it now, Mr. Singh. Wouldn't it be highly embarrassing because it was the security team that were bound up in the prosecutions? They were the ones that essentially investigated and then brought the prosecutions, weren't they?
I don't know what I was saying at that time. So
Think about it now, then. That's why it would be highly embarrassing, wouldn't it? The people who are bringing the prosecutions, if the information didn't reach them but had been passed to someone within the post office, that would be embarrassing, wouldn't it?
I'm not really sure what you're asking of me, sir, but I'm not sure what you're asking for me, but I can't recollect.
You said in an email it would be highly embarrassing for the post office if it was suggested that Fujitsu had informed some bits of the post office of the two bugs, but that information had never reached the security team. And I asked you, why would it be highly embarrassing? You said, I can't recall what I was thinking now, or back then, and I said, well, tell us now.
So I wasn't part of any briefing, either at Royal Mail Group or even when I transferred to Post Office Limited. I am going by what my head of legal and general counsel and the advice from Cartwright King, who the work was outsourced to. I don't keep any files. I wasn't part of any working group, so I'm not sure what I'm actually saying there.
Would it be even more embarrassing if it emerged that Fujitsu had in fact passed on information about the bugs to the post office's legal team?
I don't know. As I said to you, I wasn't part of any briefing. Certainly,
just focus on the question. Do you agree that it would be even more embarrassing if it emerged that Fujitsu had in fact passed on information about the two bugs to the Post Office's legal team?
So I can't answer that
Why can't you answer it?
because I don't know. I mean, I wasn't privy to that sort of information. I didn't have any contact within the wider business, as the head of criminal law team had.
All of the things you're saying, Mr. Singh, don't bear on the question that I'm asking. Do you agree that it would have been highly embarrassing if it emerged that Fujitsu had in fact passed on information about the two bugs that was said to have been revealed by Second Sight, and that information had been passed to the legal team, but the legal team hadn't disclosed them?
Well, it shouldn't have been done that way. I mean, I don't know.
Therefore, it would have been embarrassing?
It's embarrassing being here, but all I'm saying to you, I wasn't privy to that sort of information because criminal law team, you had the head of criminal law team who dealt with these matters, and they weren't passed down to my grade, which was a junior grade, and certainly at Post Office Limited, it was likewise. I wasn't part of any of the working group, or the only information I had is what was passed down to me by the general counsel or head of legal, who was my line manager.
Do you agree that it would be more than embarrassing, a lot more serious than just embarrassing, if it emerged that the Post Office's legal team had made decisions not to give disclosure of bugs to the defence and to the courts?
But I wasn't in a decision-making capacity. Certainly,
that's the answer to a different question, Mr. Singh. I'm asking you, do you agree if it would be a lot more than just embarrassing if it emerged that Fujitsu had given information to the Post Office, to the legal team in the Post Office, and the Post Office legal team had made decisions not to give disclosure of that information to the defence and to the courts?
I wasn't in that position to make. I wasn't aware of it. It certainly didn't come to me.
No, that's a separate question. I'm just asking you, do you agree that it would be a lot more than embarrassing if what I've described was to be the case?
Well, I hope it didn't happen that way. I certainly don't know anything about that.
Mr. Singh, please focus on my questions. Do you agree that it would be a lot more than embarrassing if that state of affairs emerged?
I hope it didn't happen, but certainly I wasn't aware of any of that, no. But certainly, yes, I mean, I'm relaying the information I've been given.
At the top of the email, you say you're concerned that the Post Office is entering dangerous territory. Why was the Post Office entering dangerous territory?
This is quite some time ago since I considered it. Certainly, the information I've been given from a legal point of view is to draft it in such a way, because this is, if you're going public, you've got to have your facts. It's got to be accurate. And basically, what I'm saying to them is, look, I'm not expert in this area. I've got limited knowledge. You need to go to the criminal specialist, which is Cartwright King. I think I refer them to it right at the bottom, because I'm concerned that is a proper avenue. It's not somebody like myself who can actually advise them. I relayed what information I had, and I think that somewhere along the line or subsequently I say, no, I can't deal with it, because you really need somebody who's on the ball on this matter.
Did you investigate whether the Post Office knew of the existence of the two bugs before the Second Sight report?
The way it, from memory, I mean, from what I can recall, and certainly the papers sent to me by the inquiry, the way these things came about, there were a working group who worked very closely with somebody like Second Sight, the mediation scheme, which I wasn't part of. They had meetings, which I wasn't part of. I had limited information, so I always used to get the information from the head of legal. And I think in these circumstances, there was a lot of work being done, a lot of working group involved. And I was told that, look, we got people onto it already. And I was told to task with two things. One, to keep Cartwright King updated by means of the company secretary, who was heavily involved in this, and also to help the legal head of legal to find the information. So I did that and relayed it to him, and hopefully it get into the system or the people who were dealing with it. Certainly I got the information with regard to the two bugs which I was aware of, or issues with the Misra case, by supplying them with the cut and paste of the legal advice by the barrister in the case, Mr. Tedford. And also I think I phoned Fujitsu to find out whether they knew anything else and relay that to the head of legal. But apart from that, that's the only investigation I had. That's the only thing I could do at that time.
Did you not investigate too deeply the issue of whether individuals within Post Office were aware of the existence of bugs before the second site report, because you knew that issue didn't need investigating, because you knew that you were aware of bugs?
Certainly not, sir. That's not the case, to my knowledge. My involvement was basically liaison with Cartwright King, keeping or any input or specific advice which my head of legal, who was my line manager, or had requested, or any information he wanted, or any specific advices he wanted, or the general counsel. And that was the only role I had. And that is what I was told. They said, well, look, Jarnail, what you need to do is, we got people who got a lot of information, who are involved in it, who are dealing with it, and as and when we need you to do something, you provide that. And that is to update Cartwright King by the company secretary, and also to provide information with regard to the Misra case, which I did.
Just whilst we're on this email, in the second paragraph, it says in the third line, the fact that the bugs manifested in more than one location could be described as systemic, but not system-wide. Accordingly, there were arguments over terminology used by second site. Were you aware that the Post Office kept relying on the word systemic in its public pronouncements for many years after the second site report?
So I'm not aware of that, because I wasn't involved to that high level. I mean, certainly a criminal law team, it was the head of criminal law in the Post Office, is the working groups, and you had general counsel and the head of legal dealing with it.
You draw a distinction here between systemic and system-wide, which may be a fair distinction. Was anything done about your drawing of that distinction here, to your knowledge? Was it followed up at all with you?
That came up because that was the information I was given by Cartwright King. A lot of this was in discussion with Cartwright King, because they have the information. I wouldn't have that sort of information. Cartwright King, and probably the advices I read. But it was the sort of information I had from Cartwright King. It wasn't something that I personally had firsthand.
And I'm asking a different question, which is not where did you get the knowledge from to write that sentence. The question I'm asking is, after you wrote this, was anything done about it?
Well, as I said to you, that was highlighted to the head of legal, and everything I did was in line with what the input he requested or he wanted. I didn't have any other task. I didn't have anything more than that, because I was told that working groups...
So Mr. Singh, I'm sorry to be persistent. Would you kindly answer my question? Was anything done, to your knowledge, about the distinction that you drew here?
I don't know, sir.
Okay, I'll move on. Could I turn then to your true state of knowledge in relation to the two bugs mentioned by Second Sight in the early parts of their report? And firstly, look at your prior knowledge. That can come down, thank you. of the receipts and payments mismatch bug. I'm going to ask you some simple questions first before we go into the detail. First, do you accept that in fact, shortly before Seema Misra's trial began in October 2010, you were made aware of the receipts and payments mismatch bug?
I can't recall. I don't remember anything around that at all, because I've read the inquiry's papers over and over again, and I can't make a head or tail of what was going on there.
Secondly, do you accept that no disclosure was made by you to the defence or to the court in Seema Misra's case of the existence of the receipts and payments mismatch bug?
I wasn't aware of that. Can you put it on what receipt and payment information are you talking about, please?
Sorry?
Can you put that up? What are
We're
you?
going to come to the detail in a moment. What happens when I show you a document is you tend to get distracted perhaps into the terms of the document. So I'm just standing back at the moment and looking at some general questions. You having had lots of time to prepare for today and being given all of the relevant documents in advance of today.
Yes.
And I'm asking you, do you accept that the receipts and payments mismatch bug, the existence of it, was not disclosed to the defence or to the court in the course of or before Seema Misra's trial?
I don't recall anything of that.
Surely, Mr. Singh, you know about this. This case went off to the Court of Appeal.
Well,
You must have read the Court of Appeal's judgment. It says it was an error not to have disclosed it, that the Post Office conceded that there should have been disclosure. And this is one of your cases that you prosecuted. You must know that there was no disclosure.
Well, as I said to you, that my knowledge in this area is very limited. Apart from the Misra case, I've not come across any other case where even as to what they were, was the only time I came across it. And that's why, when I dealt with the Misra case, I had an experienced counsel and experienced investigation officer working alongside me. I have the disclosure was dealt with in this case by head of criminal law, like I told you on the last.
So let's just go back to the question. Do you accept that there was no disclosure of the existence of the receipts and payments mismatch bug in Seema Misra's case?
From what the inquiry has paper sent me, I wasn't aware of that, and I obviously couldn't deal with it because I wasn't aware of it. No.
Do you accept that your claims made in the 2013 documents that we've just looked at and the 2015 email that we've just looked at, that the first you became of the receipts and payments mismatch bug upon production of the second site report were false?
No, that's not true.
You'd known about the bug all along, hadn't you, Mr. Singh?
No, that's not true.
You had known about the bug all along, Mr. Singh.
No.
You were covering it up in 2013 and 2015, weren't you?
No, I wasn't covering it.
You were covering up your own guilty knowledge.
No, I wasn't.
Did you not recognise in 2013, 14 and 15 that this wasn't the time to dig in, to double down? It was, on the contrary, time to open up your mind to the reality that you had known about the receipts and payments mismatch bug and you had failed to disclose it.
I wasn't aware. If I'd known, I would have disclosed it. In the Misra case, any other case, I had no knowledge of those at that time, or even when I transferred over to the Post Office Limited. And as I said to you, as far as the second site's inquiry review is concerned, anything related to it, I was not involved in it. We had working groups. So everything you said is not true.
You were part of a group of people that doubled down on their position, not only having failed to give disclosure of the receipts and payments mismatch bug in 2010, but then you sought to cover up that fact from 2013 onwards. And it would take another 7 years until 2020 for Mrs. Misra, who'd been sent to prison whilst pregnant.
Not true. That is absolute.
To have her conviction overturned.
That's for the court appeal. I mean, I there were problems with those cases, but there is no way I would ever cover up anything of that magnitude. I wasn't aware. I wasn't made aware. I don't recall any of the information, and it was very difficult to put the inquiry papers together because they came in separate bundles. Or that's why it's not dealt with in the witness statement, because I think quite a lot of it relating to it came subsequently. But there certainly was no cover-up on my part.
Can we look then at your actual knowledge of the receipts and payments mismatch
Yes.
bug? At poll 302-8838. And page 6, please. This is a report entitled Correcting Accounts for Lost Discrepancies, written by Gareth Jenkins. Understand?
Yes, yes.
You can see the author there is Gareth Idris Jenkins. And can you see the reference that's given just above his name there?
Yes, yes.
The character string notes lost discrepancies, yes?
Yes.
And if we just look at the introduction to see what it's about, this is a note about the receipts and payments mismatch bug. This note relates to some peaks, and then moving under the box, one of the peaks describes a problem with stock unit balancing that will result in a receipts payments mismatch. A fix is available for this peak, which needs to be scheduled. However, any branch encountering the problem will have corrupted accounts. And then if we go to page 7, it sets out the consequences of the bug. There'll be, first bullet point, a receipts and payments mismatch corresponding to the value of discrepancies that were lost. If the user doesn't check their final balance report carefully, they may be unaware of the issue, since there is no explicit message when a receipts and payments mismatch is found. Local suspense will have no knowledge of the discrepancy. So it's saying that there is a bug that gives a misbalance between receipts and payments, i.e. a mismatch, and that will be unknown to the user, okay?
Okay.
That is what I'm going to call Mr. Jenkins' report. We should have just looked at the date of it on the first page. So back a page, please. 29th of September 2020, okay?
Yes.
Can we look, please, at...
Mr. Beer.
Sorry, did I say 20? I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'll blame that
Maybe
on...
get that accurately on the record, that's all.
Thank you, sir. I blame that on the flu. Can we go forwards, please, to poll 305-5410? And can we look down... Thank you. In fact, if we just look at the top first, so we can see who this is sent to. It's from Mr. Wilson to Juliet McFarlane and to you.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
And then let's look down on the email. From Mr. Simpson in Post Office Security Team. And we're now on the 8th of October. And he says to Mr. Wilson first, I'm forwarding you the attachments above in relation to a series of incidents identified by Fujitsu this week, whereby it appears that when posting discrepancies to the local suspense, these amounts simply disappear at branch level and a balance is shown. The above includes Fujitsu's initial analysis and proposed solutions, whilst the other documents, the outputs from various meetings held this week. My concern is around the proposed solutions, one of more of which may have repercussions in any future prosecution cases and on the integrity of the Horizon Online system. There's a further dial-in meeting. Yes?
Yes, yes.
And if we go up the page, please. Mr. Wilson forwards this to you at 4:29 p.m. on the 8th of October. Yes?
Yes.
Can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Would you agree that for someone who was prosecuting sub-postmasters at the time, this email ought to ring alarm bells?
Yes.
Because it's showing, isn't it, Mr. Singh, that money is disappearing at branch level and balances are shown that are incorrect?
I looked at the inquiry bundle. I don't recall reading this email, and I don't remember printing printing anything. There's a bit from my I don't know what you call it, account at all.
Your drive, your system. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
You're ahead. You're a couple of questions ahead, Mr. Singh. You know I'm going to turn next.
No,
aren't you?
Because I'm telling you that is why it's not in my witness statement, because I didn't understand it. If I even received it, I wouldn't understand it, to be honest. It'd be something I would expect somebody with knowledge and expertise like Mr. Wilson, who is the contact within the business, to not send it the way he has, FYI, because it doesn't mean anything to me, because he knew my knowledge about these things was very limited.
Just go down the page, please. In the first paragraph, it appears that when posting discrepancies to the local suspense, these amounts simply disappear at branch level and a balance is shown. And then reading on, solutions may have repercussions in any future prosecution cases and on the integrity of the Horizon system. That would ring alarm bells for you, wouldn't it?
It certainly would, but
Thank you, because it mentions on its face repercussions for prosecutions and on the integrity of Horizon Online.
Yeah, but what my evidence is that I don't remember receiving it, don't remember printing it, and that is not. I don't know anything about this.
Okay. If we just go back up, please, you'll see that the email that was sent to you had 2 attachments. Can you see that under attachments?
Yes.
The first of which was called Receipts, Payments, Notes, version 5, .doc.
Yes.
And the second was called Lost Discrepancies, 290910, .doc. Yes?
Yes.
Remember what Mr. Jenkins' document was called? Lost Discrepancies, yes?
Yes.
Remember its date, 29th
Yes.
of September 2010, yes?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Let's display poll 302 8838, please. And then scroll down, please. And to page 6, please. Thank you. You'll see that in the reference again, this document was called Notes/Lost Discrepancies, and it's dated the 29th of September 2010, yes?
Yes.
And if we look at the footer of the page, please. The character string at the bottom, C:\\documents and settings /Jarnail.a.sing, local settings, temporary internet files, etc. This was saved in your drive, wasn't it?
I don't know, sir. As I said to you, I don't recall seeing it, don't recall printing it.
This was saved in your drive, wasn't it?
I don't even know what you're talking about, because I don't know how to do these things worked.
You don't know how to save a document?
No, I didn't at that time in year 2010.
So the decades you worked for the post office, you didn't save a document?
Certainly not when I was at the Royal Mail Group.
You never saved a document?
No, because I didn't know how to do it.
You know, don't you, that you got this email, you got Mr. Jenkins' documents, and not only was it saved in your drive, you printed it, didn't you?
No, that's not the case.
How can you recall whether you printed a document or not?
I don't recall. That was the reason why it was difficult to remember it. Otherwise, I would have would certainly try to find out what this means, because document at that time, year 2010, I didn't have the knowledge. Certainly, didn't have the technical knowledge, or what it meant. I needed somebody to explain it to me, and then deal with it accordingly. But I do not remember this document at all, or the email.
Can we display at the same time poll 305 5410? We can see the email sending this document to you is dated the 29th, is timed at 4:29 p.m. Can you see that on the left-hand side?
Yes, I can, yes.
And we can see that it was printed 9 minutes later at 4:38.
Yes.
See that at the
yes.
bottom?
No, that is there, yes.
You printed this document out, didn't you? You
No.
did so because you'd read the email from Messrs. Simpson and Wilson. And you printed the document out, didn't you? The attachment out.
That's not true. I don't remember seeing the email from Rob Wilson, the attachments to it, at all. From memory, I don't recall the document.
And what you're engaged in now is closing your mind to the possibility that you saw this, blind denial, because you know that this is evidence of your own guilty knowledge.
That is not true, and I don't feel guilty because I haven't received it. If I did, I would have dealt with it by understanding what it meant. And
You just said if I had received it.
If I've seen it, I don't recall receiving it, or reading it, or printing it. That is my evidence on oath.
This is the Tuesday, the week before Seema Misra's trial started on the Monday. Friday, I'm so sorry. You didn't disclose the existence of this bug in the trial, did you?
I didn't. I don't have any recollection of receiving it or seeing it.
You know now that the Post Office conceded before the Court of Appeal that there ought to have been such disclosure, don't you?
Well, this ought to have been dealt with by the head of criminal law team. It doesn't make any sense to me. He's an expert. He has a wider knowledge of these things as to why he just sent it as a FYI. He's a man of experience and knowledge and expertise. I have never known anything received from him without any detailed knowledge as to what to do with it. He gave us very detailed instructions, and he's just sent it as FYI. I can't understand that at all. And I can't recall receiving it or reading it or printing it at that time. And the only time I have read it is when the inquiry sent me the papers.
You had a meeting with Mr. Wilson about it, didn't you?
I don't recall that meeting.
That's referred to in the second line of the email on the left.
That is, I think, must be a team meeting, but I know certainly me and the legal executive and my secretary were dealing with the Misra trial, with the exhibits, from memory exhibits, and the jury bundles. I don't know whether...
You were the solicitor with conduct of Misra, weren't you?
Yes, I was, yes.
It fell to you to give disclosure of this bug, didn't it?
If I received it and understood it, but I don't remember receiving that email with those attachments.
So what we've got is an email addressed to you attaching details of the bug. We've got a copy of the document saved in your drive, and we've got it printed 9 minutes after the email was received by you. And you say you didn't get any of this.
No, as I said to you, I do not recall this document at all, the email and the attachments. I even, when I got the papers from the inquiry, I didn't understand it at all, what it meant, because this is not an area where I was that comfortable with in understanding. So I needed somebody who did. And I don't, firstly, remember receiving any of this.
It follows, doesn't it, that when you were saying in 2013 and 2015 that the first you had heard about the receipts and payments mismatch bug was when Second Sight revealed it, in inverted commas, in their report, that was false, wasn't it?
No, that is not the case.
It was false in 2013 and it was false in 2015, wasn't it?
No, that's not the case. It's
You
not
knew
true.
you'd been told about this bug in 2010, just before the trial.
No.
And you were covering it up in 2013 and 2015, weren't you?
No, there was been no cover-up on my part, and never will be, and never can be.
Can we take that down, please, and look at your witness statement, please? Page 68, paragraph 204.
60.
Sorry, I think it's your first witness statement,
Yeah, I was just about to ask you if it's the first
which
one.
is WITN 0475 0100. Page 68, please. So page 68, please. Thank you. Foot of the page, paragraph 204. You say, I've considered the document entitled Correcting Accounts for Lost Discrepancies. That's the Gareth Jenkins document of the 29th of September 2010. And you say, I do not recall having seen this document before the inquiry provided it to me. If I'd known about this document, I would have provided it to the investigation and security team to try and understand what it meant, the implications of it, and whether the problem was being resolved. Once it had been assessed, I would have considered the disclosure test and disclosed it. In this witness statement, you are seeking to carry on the pretense, aren't you, that you hadn't seen the document in 2010, weren't you?
No, sir, that's not the case.
You're here running the same line as you had run in 2013 and 2015, aren't you?
No.
Giving false evidence to the inquiry.
No, I do not give false evidence. I'm here to assist, and that's what I'm doing.
When you wrote this, you didn't know that we would discover an email sending the document to you of the 5th of October, did you?
No, that's not the case. I don't remember any of these documents at all.
Sorry, the 8th of
receiving from
October.
the inquiry.
You didn't know that we would get hold of the document, the email dated the 8th of October, showing that this had in fact been sent to you.
No, that's not the case.
You didn't pay this much attention when you were writing this witness statement by looking at the character string at the bottom of the document to see that it had in fact been saved in your drive, did you?
That's not the case. That's not true.
You're not really a details man, are you?
I don't know what you mean, but
You weren't paying the attention that it deserved to the details when you were writing this, were you? You didn't see that you'd printed the document, did you?
I don't know what you mean, sir, but I can tell you I did not see that document until before the inquiry sent it to me.
So that might be an appropriate moment for the morning break. Can we break from now until 11 o'clock, please?
Yeah.
Can you see and hear us?
Yes, thank you, yes.
Mr. Singh, did you maintain a hard copy file for each case that you prosecuted?
Yes,
And did you print documents and add them to the file?
I didn't personally. What used to happen, we had a desktop, and my secretary did. I did the dictation, my secretary did the typing, and she did the printing.
And so would you say, please print a document and add it to the file?
I don't know how the system was set up, but certainly I dictated, and she did the. For example, if the letter came in, I would dictate it with a physical file, and gave it to her, and she would do the.
I'm not talking about letters out at the moment. I'm talking about documents in. If you received an email and you wanted it added to the file, you would say, please print this email. Please print this document.
She would, yes.
And how would she have access to your system?
I don't know, sir, to be honest.
Did she have access to your system?
She had access to the system, yeah.
You didn't have to forward her the email?
No, I don't think so.
So if we were to find a copy of Mr. Jenkins' report on the Seema Misra hard copy file, that would mean that you had given an instruction for it to be printed, would it?
I can't recall how it works out now, but certainly I wasn't very good at the tech IT side of things, the printing, and all I did dictated the stuff, and she did the rest. She made up the file, and she printed the emails. I very rarely, I don't think remember printing very much at all because I didn't know how to.
You knew the high importance of the Seema Misra case to the post
Yes.
office, didn't you?
It's still very important to me now, sir.
But back in the day, back
Yes,
in October
yeah,
2010,
yes.
you knew it was of critical importance to the post office.
It was important to me because it's the very first one I've been able to take it all the way with the documents. Every single document in that case was new to me, and that I was very careful and very cautious. I had Mr. Longman, Mr. Tadford, even Mr. Jenkins onto it, Mr. Wilson, because I didn't feel comfortable. I think there was a number of occasions when I said to Mr. Wilson, Rob, you need to take this case on. I just can't cope with it because, everything was so new. I was so careful and methodical with it because I knew that, I didn't want to get anything wrong on it.
So being careful and methodical, you would have received this email and read it carefully, wouldn't you?
As I said to you, if I received it, if I've even seen it, the first thing I would have done is probably send it to Mr. Tedford and Mr. Longman because we were working very closely together on this, and certainly Mr. Tedford, and probably because of the nature of it, I didn't understand it. And you've got Misra case on Monday. We've been very close-knit team. He would have received it, and he would have probably rang me, or I would have rang him, and say, "Look, Mr. Tedford, what does it mean? What do we do, please?" That's how I worked. And same as Mr. Longman. Mr. Longman was wonderful all the way through because he was very helpful to me because he was an expert dealing with Fujitsu and all side of things. So that's the first thing I've done. If I read it, that would have been what I've done with it, would have done with it.
All of this, if I received it, if I read it, is a big fat lie, isn't it? And
No, sir.
You know it, Mr. Singh.
Sir, I didn't come here to lie. I'm at an age where I have come to assist the inquiry, and that's all. And if I had seen it at that time, that is what I would have done. I'm not one of those. You've seen it. You call me a letterbox. That's a compliment to me because that's the way I work. If I don't understand anything, I will find somebody who does. Here, Mr. Tedford was my guy, and so was Mr. Longman. So that's the way we worked. The first thing would have been, it would have been forwarded to him, we would have discussed it, and we would have dealt with it.
Can we look, please, at poll 305 5418? This is an email half an hour earlier on Friday, the 8th of October, to you from Miss Talbot, copying in Mike Granville and Rod Ismay. They were senior managers in the business, weren't they?
I know Mandy Talbot. I've never heard of Mike Granville. I don't know who Rod Ismay was either. But she was a bit of a nuisance, and I don't think I've actually responded to her very much.
Sorry, who was a nuisance?
Mandy Talbot, because I think she kept on asking all sort of weird and wonderful questions, and I just referred her to Mr. Wilson because I just didn't understand what information, what inferences she was asking for. So everything I highlighted, and I just referred her to Mr. Wilson, and Mr. Wilson being of the same rank, or they probably had a lot of discussions, but I had very little to do with her.
Anyway, so just before you received the email containing the details of the receipts and payments mismatch bug, Ms. Talbot is writing to you saying, Mike and Rod are also very interested in any developments. Did you think at the time, I don't even know who Mike and Rod are?
Probably, but I mean,
Dear Mandy, please explain who Mike and Rod are.
I didn't do that. I didn't even respond to it, I don't think, because I was so focused on that particular case. I knew her from the old days when she was in the civil litigation department, we were in the same building, but I didn't really speak to her very much. All of a sudden, in this case, she appeared from nowhere, and I think the only other involvement we had is when Mrs. Misra highlighted the computer magazines and the list of cases, and I think Warwick Tedford went to meet her to review those cases, but I didn't. I don't think I've had very much to do with her. I don't think I've met her since our days when we were in the same building in Packet House in Croydon.
Anyway, these two men that you don't know are very interested in any developments at the trial next week which impact on Horizon. You promised to let me know if anything unfortunate occurred in respect of Horizon. That's written as if Miss Talbot had had a conversation with you or a communication with you in which you had said, if something unfortunate happens, you would let her know. Is that right?
I probably had a very glancing conversation. There wasn't anything about unfortunate. I don't know what she was talking about there as to what she mentioned. But it was, I don't even recall the conversation. As I said, the only conversation she had was with Rob Wilson, head of criminal law team, because they probably beat the same people, they had the same briefing, and they were, contact within the business. I had no contact within the business. The only people I knew was Rob Wilson, and probably my, Juliet McFarland, Mrs. Debbie Staples, and the two legal executives who I worked with.
Please, can you copy Rod and Mike into any messages? You didn't reply and say, well, why should I do that? I don't know who these men are.
I don't recall, to be honest.
Incidentally, I assume you have briefed external relations. Had you briefed external relations?
I don't even know who external relations she was referring to at that time. I mean, it's certainly when I moved to Post Office Limited, they had a big department, big room like this with a lot of cameras and videos and all sorts of things. But certainly at that time, I don't know what she was talking about communications.
Did you reply and say, I don't know what you mean by external relations?
No, I don't think I replied in those terms. I probably
Can you let us know who you've briefed? Because Mike and Rod may wish to have input into any story relating to Horizon. They may give you a call for an update. Incidentally, Postmasters for Justice met with the Minister this week and were accompanied by Izzy Hogg, that's the defence solicitor, and the lady from Shoesmiths. This email left you in no doubt as to how important the trial was to the business, didn't it?
No, sir. That didn't even occur to me. Mrs. Misra was the most important person because I was focused on dealing with her case in the best of my ability. Certainly, I don't think I replied to it, but if I did reply to it, I would have left it to Rob Wilson to deal with her.
You didn't reply to this because you understood that this was conveying the message. The Horizon system is on trial next week. You need to tell us if anything is going to go wrong.
No, Mrs. Misra was on trial, not Horizon. Horizon didn't occur to me at all. I don't even understand the Horizon. I was dealing with the trial as a trial would do. Horizon is something that John Longman and Mr. Jenkins dealt with.
This would have put in your mind, wouldn't it, when you received the receipts and payments mismatch documentation, the high importance of it, wouldn't it?
No, that was, I didn't receive that document. As I said to you, that if I did, my team or Mr. Tedford and Mr. Longman be the first people who would have been copied in, like we always did. You've seen how we went through the Misra case in a very methodical, careful way. And I admit mistakes were made, and I'm ever sorry that Mrs. Misra had suffered. And I am ever so embarrassed to be here that we made those mistakes and put somebody's liberty at stake and the loss she suffered and the damage we caused, which is not what this was about. This email doesn't mean anything to me. I don't even remember
This tells you that there's a lot riding on the trial, doesn't it?
No, sir. No, it did not.
External relations need to be briefed. Input needs to be made in relation to a story relating to Horizon. JFSA have met with a minister. It's all ramping it up for you, isn't it? How important the trial is, because it's really about Horizon, this trial, isn't it?
Absolutely not. And I don't know anything about the Masters for Justice, ministers and shoesmiths. Izzy Hogg, yes, because she was the defence solicitor, but the others don't mean anything to me. And certainly, I don't know, you could read what you like into that content. I didn't see it in that way. She wrote, I ignored it, and it was something that Rob Wilson dealt with. I did not deal with her in any shape or form before the case, after the case.
Thank you. That can come down. Can I turn to your knowledge of the local suspense account bug, please? And have up on the screen poll 0014 4919. And if we can go to page 3, please. This is an email chain that we're going to see later is forwarded to you. It's an email exchange between Leslie Sewell, who is the Chief Information Officer at the Post Office, to Paula Venables and others of the 28th of June 2013. And it's about the local suspense account bug. So it's an exchange amongst senior individuals within the organisation. And if we look at the timeline, scroll down, please. Just a little bit further up, please. First raised to MBSC on 25th of February. Problem diagnosed 28th of February. And then under root cause, when calculating the office balance gains and losses of stock units for a branch are pulled together into one place called the local suspense. This is temporary data which is held in the system until the end of the trading period and the branch balances. After each trading period, this should be cleared so that the opening balance is 0 at the start of the next trading period. For the 14 branches, this temporary data was not cleared, which resulted in it reappearing in the same trading period the following year. Excuse me, this only affected 2 trading periods, 9 and 10. this would have affected the sub-postmaster balance, as his opening figure would have been incorrect for that period. And if we go to page 1, please. At the foot of the page, please. This is forwarded to you from Hugh Flemington on the 28th of June, so later that day, saying, Rob Williams, have we more detail from Rod Ismay as to when we spotted this? And then at the top of the page, please. The effects of the 14 bug on branch counting was notified to Post Office by a few sub-postmasters in around January 2012. However, Post Office did not identify Horizon as the root cause until January 2013. So at this time, in June 2013, you're being told that there's a separate bug called the local suspense account bug, the effects of which had been felt from January 2012, but Horizon had been identified as the root cause in January 2013. Yes?
Yes.
Was there a rush within the Post Office to find out in the weeks before the publication of the second site report on the 8th of July 2013, when the Post Office was aware of the bugs referred to in the report?
As far as local suspense accounts are concerned, I have no knowledge. I don't know what they mean. Secondly, these things I was copied in by my line manager, Hugh Flemington. I spoke to him and he said, we got a working group looking into it. I don't know whether he actually named who was involved in it. And he said, look, he had some sort of plan of action. So there were various people doing various things, and he asked me to do one or two things as part of it. And he said, well, when I need you, when I want you to, just keep an eye on things. And when I need you, when I want you to provide me with the information, do that. And on here, you got working group involved in it, and you got, I think, a few other people involved in it, Bond Dickinson and maybe Cartwright King. But my role, as far as my line manager was concerned, was to keep eye on things, and as and when he required any information input or specific advice, he will come to me. So
my question, Mr. Singh, was there something of a scrabbling around in the weeks before the second site report? When it emerged, they're going to talk about these two bugs, receipts and payments and local suspense, to find out when within the organisation we knew about them.
I wasn't involved in it. I wasn't aware of it. There was probably a certain amount of work that was carried on. As I say, there's working groups who deal with it. It was specific people onto those working groups, and they probably did. They probably had meetings with the second site. I had no meeting with second site. I don't think I've ever met second site. I can't say to you...
Mr. Singh, you're answering questions that haven't been asked. The things you've just said would be an answer to a question.
Okay.
Did you ever meet second site? And you would say, no, I didn't meet second site. But I've not asked that.
Okay. No, so apologise. I'm trying to... Okay. Ask me again, and then I will give you a straight...
Was there something of an internal scrabbling around in the period before the 8th of July 2013 in the Post Office to find out when did we know about these two bugs?
I don't recall specifically that was happening in the background, but it was not to my knowledge.
Do you agree that that's what this email chain seems to be about, a timeline of Post Office knowledge of the local suspense account bug?
I can't say to you one way or the other, I don't know, but certainly there is some sort of activity going on, yes.
Would this not prompt you to reveal, hold on, I may not know about this bug, the local suspense account bug, but I did know about the receipts and payments mismatch bug?
No, sir, because I like I said to you before the break, I wasn't aware of that.
I've known about that bug for 3 years, and I didn't disclose it in criminal proceedings.
Sir, that's not how it was. I told you I wasn't aware of it, and that is the way my evidence is. No, I was not aware of that.
Can we turn to your knowledge of the Calendar Square or Falkirk bug by looking at FUJ 00122794? And start by looking at page 2, please. Can we see an email dated the 5th of February 2010 from you, in fact it's your secretary, Marilyn Benjamin, yes?
Yes.
To David Jones, Gareth Jenkins and Penny Thomas with the heading West Byfleet Issues, Seema Misra Legally Privileged. And so David Jones, he was a lawyer, right?
Yeah, I believe that Fujitsu, yes.
A Fujitsu lawyer. And you say, Dear David and Penny, on first glance, points 2 to 4 haven't been answered, which I reproduce below. And then point 3, when Gareth completes his statement, so I should have read point 2. Point 2, my barrister telephoned me yesterday evening and requested that I find out any information that Fujitsu may hold in relation to an office called Calendar Square in Falkirk. Apparently Anne Chambers, a systems specialist employed by Fujitsu, was cross-examined. It said that she had full knowledge of an error in the Horizon system at this post office. Our barrister would like Gareth to deal with this matter and expand upon whatever issue Anne Chambers raised at court within his statement. 3, when Gareth completes his statement, could he also mention whether there are any known problems with the Horizon system that Fujitsu are aware of? If none, could this be clarified in the statement? And then if we scroll up, please. We then see Mr. Jenkins' reply. And so looking at this generally, this puts your knowledge of the Calendar Square bug at February 2010, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins' reply, which I think I can skip over, go to the page 1, please. A bit further up. Thank you. Mr. Jones's reply to you. This is an email that I've received earlier from Gareth. You'll see it's clear that in order to answer counsel's questions, that's Warwick Tapford's question, about any issues, he needs to be able to check the underlying transaction logs to be able to say whether there were any issues. On the specific issues you raised, Gareth's view is 2, this is about Falkirk, he needs information and time to research the background to this case before providing any response. And 3, he's not currently in a position to make a clear statement. It's possible for there to be problems where transactions have been lost in particular circumstances due to locking issues. When this happens, then we have events in the underlying logs to indicate there was an issue. Whenever we provide transaction logs to the post office, we check for such events. In the case of West Byfield, we've not been asked to provide any transaction logs, so have not made these checks. So this is telling you about the Calendar Square problem. Whilst we're here, did it cause you concern that Mr. Jenkins felt unable to make a statement as to, and if you read, he's not currently in a position to make a clear statement. And if we scroll down, please, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again. Thank you. He's not in a position to make a clear statement as to whether there are any known problems with the Horizon system. Did that cause alarm bells to ring for you?
He's not able to deal with it because he can't examine the logs. Secondly, I think here he's dealing directly with the defence expert, and I think it's in response to that. So in that sense, there's an issue, but it's being dealt with. It will be dealt with once he gets the information he needs to examine it.
So are you saying it didn't ring any alarm bells that your expert witness felt unable to make a statement whether there were any known problems with Horizon?
This man is a man of... I think if you look at the documents, two things. Firstly, he's an expert. He's an experienced person who knows the system. And secondly, I think we put the defence on notice, or even at the Crown Court on the 1st of February 10, that we're not going to rely on an expert. We're relying on a Fujitsu employee who's got the experience and the knowledge to deal with it, and he's dealing with it. He's dealing with it in the sense that he needs information to be able to address it. And secondly, I think he's dealing directly with the defence expert. He's assisting him. So in that sense, and thirdly, I didn't have the knowledge to understand what the locking issue was at that time. Sorry, maybe it's a long answer, but just a comprehensive thing as to my understanding from the inquiry papers when I read them. And that's why I'm highlighting to you what I'm highlighting to you now, that I didn't understand what the locking meant. I probably need somebody like Mr. Gareth Jenkins or Warwick or Mr. Longman to explain that to me. And he didn't have any alarm bells because he's dealing with it. He will deal with it when he receives the logs.
I'm not going to pursue that further. That can come down. Do you remember that just before the publication of the second site report in July 2013, you sought out some of the papers concerning your knowledge of the Calendar Square bug?
Yes, my line manager, Hugh Flemington, asked for them because the company secretary wanted them.
Can we look, please, at FUJ 0015 4228 and turn, please, to page 4. Can you see that there's an email here, seemingly out of nowhere, from Mr. Jenkins to you on the 1st of July 2013, attaching his witness statement for the Misra case?
I don't think it came out from nowhere. I think I emailed him, and the company secretary, I think, also in the background had been in touch with him to find out whether there was any other problems apart from the Falkirk issue.
What was the context for you asking for a copy of his witness statement from 3 years previously in July 13?
Because my line manager, Hugh Flemington, asked for it because he'd been asked by the company secretary to obtain it.
But Mrs. Misra had been found guilty. She'd served her sentence of imprisonment. The case had been concluded. Why did you need to see the witness statement?
As I said to you, a working group is working on it. I've been told when I request input from you or what I request from you, you provide it, and I did. And he asked, and I think he said there's an email chain from the information, the inquiry, or the papers inquiry supplied to me, that she wanted the head of legal, Hugh Flemington, and he copied me and said, Jarnail, can you provide Castleton issue or Falkirk? And I did the best I could and provided that.
Was this part of the scrabbling around within the post office in the run-up to the publication of the second site report to find out what had and had not been disclosed? Because you knew that second site were going to mention the existence of bugs in Horizon in their report.
No, sir. You're further from the facts. Facts were there's a working group involved. My line manager asked me when I need an input from you or the information I need, and you need to be ready to provide it. Company secretaries has asked him for certain information. He's asked me to get it, and that's all there is. That is my total involvement in obtaining that. It was nothing untoward on my part. I don't know what they were looking for, what they wanted. I was asked for some information. I found it, provided it.
If we go to the bottom of page 3, please. You reply to him what bugs were referred to or considered in Misra or Castleton or any other case, full stop, are able to help. Then further up the page, please. His reply, Jarnail, the bug that was discussed in both cases related to a problem found in Calendar Square, Falkirk, around 2004, as covered in my witness statement. In response to it having been raised by the defence expert, Professor McLachlan, he was aware of it, as it had also been raised by Mr. Castleton in 2006. I don't know how Mr. Castleton was aware of it. So that's all accurate. He rightly says that a single bug was disclosed in Misra, only the Calendar Square bug, correct?
Yes.
Here we're a week before the publication of the interim report and a fortnight before the writing of the Simon Clarke advice. And then if we go up further, please. You reply, good afternoon and thanks. Are they the two referred to presently? Are you able to pinpoint it in your statement? And then keep scrolling, please. Please see page 14, and that will take you to the Calendar Square bug. Also is attached to the summary from Castleton, which refers to the problem in point 23, which is also about Calendar Square. And then further up, please. And you say, thank you. Gareth, you said the Falkirk bug was first raised in the Castleton civil case and was then picked up on for a number of subsequent criminal cases, even though it was irrelevant to those environments. Apart from the Misra case, can you give us the names of the other subsequent cases he refers to? Why were you, at this stage, not revealing your knowledge of the receipts and payments mismatch bug when there's this detailed investigation into the revelation of the Falkirk Square bug?
Because I didn't know about them. Like I told you before, that was the only issue I knew about, and that's what this is about. The person who would know would have been Fujitsu, and the contact we had was Gareth Jenkins, and that's why we referred to him for information. And that's what I've been asked to do. That's what I've done.
Can we go forwards to poll 303 1352? And turn to page 3 at the bottom, please. This starts off with an email chain that ends up with you, but to start with doesn't include you.
No.
Mr. Baker to Gareth Jenkins and the Chief Information Officer and the Company Secretary. Gareth, you mentioned discussing the Falkirk bug in the Misra case today. Are there any other examples where bugs have been discussed in court? And then if we, I should say that the heading of that email is discuss of defect in Horizon in court, yes?
Yes.
And then if we scroll up, please. Mr. Jenkins replies, I'm not aware of any other specific bugs being discussed in court, either related to Legacy Horizon or Horizon Online. The Falkirk bug was first raised in the Castleton civil case and was then picked up on for a number of subsequent criminal cases, even though it was irrelevant to these environments. Defence experts were using it as an example that Horizon has bugs. And then further up, please. Owen Lyon, just go back. Owen Lyon says the question was really about whether the defect had been spoken about in open court, other than in the Misra case, as it helps that it was in the public domain and not covered up in any way. And then scroll up, please. Mr. Jenkins says, I understand the bug was spoken about in Castleton. I wasn't involved. Personally, it was definitely spoken about in the Misra case, where it was interrogated at length. Other cases where it was mentioned were settled out of court, so far as I know. And then scroll up more, please. And then stop there. I think here, Owen Lyon says, thanks, Gareth. Can we get the witness statement for Castleton, please? Hugh. Thanks, Alwyn. Then Hugh Flemington says, can you get the case details, please, as Alwyn has asked for? Is that what led to you sending that email or speaking to Mr. Jenkins, asking for a copy of his witness statement?
I think, yeah. Trying to think. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So Miss Lyons is saying, can we get the witness statement for Castleton, please? Yeah?
Yeah.
And you can see the heading of the email is still called discussion of defects in Horizon in court. Yeah?
Yes.
And then go to page 1, please. This is your reply if we scroll down to the foot of the page. Jarnail Singh, criminal lawyer. Yes?
Yes.
And then go to the top of the page, please. And keep going. Still dated the 1st of July, 2013. You see you've changed the heading to the email.
Because it's post and paste, I think, from...
Sorry?
It's post and paste. Post and paste from counsel's advised opinion or write-up on the Castleton and the the issues in Misra, I think.
You'd been asked to provide a copy of the witness statement of Mr. Jenkins, hadn't you?
I don't know.
Sorry, the witness statement in the Castleton case.
Castleton, I think I got Bond Dickinson to deal with it because it's a civil case. I don't know whether I had anything. The only thing I had in relation to Castleton was him being mentioned and discussed and dealt with.
So let's go back to page 2 then. Thanks, Gareth. Can we get the witness statement for Castleton, please, Hugh? And then to you, Jarnail, can you get Castleton case details, please? Yes? So it's all about Castleton, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, and then we go to page 1. Suddenly you're talking about Seema Misra.
Because the only case I know of where Castleton has been mentioned and discussed and dealt with is the Misra case. I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about the Castleton case because I think it was a civil matter from my recollection. And I think it's Mr. Tedford, who did the review because of we were dealing with at that time. But the only information I had, as far as the Castleton is concerned, is here. And I think I asked Bond Dickinson for a statement to provide them. Whether they did or not, I don't know. But then that's the only thing I had, and I provided it.
So you asked to provide the witness statement in Lee Castleton's case, and you say, in criminal trials, both the prosecution and defence put their case to the jury, who make a decision beyond reasonable doubt on finding the defendant guilty. Jury do not give reasons for their verdict, and it's not possible to ask the jury the basis and details on which they make their decision. On occasion, particular point can be inferred. This is the only criminal trial where a jury has been required to consider in detail the integrity of the Horizon system. 1. Seema Misra was sub-postmistress at West Byfleet. She was accused of stealing £74,000 between 2005 and 8. On the 21st of October 2010, after a 7-day trial, she was found guilty by the jury of the theft. 2. Mrs. Misra claimed that although she was guilty of false accounting, she had not stolen the money, whose loss she concealed. She suggested that one possible reason why the money appeared to be missing might be computer error. The jury heard from expert witnesses for the Crown and the defence. Their evidence was sufficiently detailed as to have lasted 2 full days. The jury's verdict showed that it was sure that computer error played no part in the case. there has been no appeal against conviction. We instructed our own expert, Gareth Jenkins, from Fujitsu. This was a turning point in the case. And skipping to 4, in his evidence to the jury, Professor McLachlan conceded that all of the theoretical problems he'd raised were now irrelevant. 5, the most significant case reviewed was that of Lee Castleton, civil case only. He brought a civil action alleging deficiencies in the Horizon system. He, unlike any other sub-postmaster, was prepared to be specific about some of the problems he claimed to have encountered. His claims were utterly refuted in the written judgment of the case. The judgment explains in detail why Mr. Castleton's allegations were rejected. It provides a rigorous analysis that is woefully absent from the vague and illogical complaints about Horizon that are reported in some sections of the media. Judgment referred briefly to a real computer problem that emerged at Calendar Square office in Falkirk. Gareth Jenkins, to investigate this problem, he provided a detailed summary of the problem in his witness statement, page 14 of the 9th of March 2010. He also explained in that statement why he concluded it was irrelevant to Mrs. Misra's case. You took it upon yourself here to provide an explanation to a wide readership which sought to justify the jury's verdict in Misra, didn't you?
No, that wasn't the case. I think I discussed it with Hugh Flemington, head of legal, and I explained to him, look, I don't know where to get the statement, but the only thing I have got of any relevance is this. And I showed it to him, and I said, well, what do you want me to do? And he said, well, send it to me, and I'll get it sorted, or I get, I don't know, somebody called Parsons Bondiggins to provide it if they may have it. I said, well, I certainly haven't. I don't even know where to get it from. And he said, well, just send me that and see what I can, maybe you can, discuss it and forward it on. But there was nothing like what you're suggesting at all.
You were seeking to justify
No.
why the jury's verdict was a vindication of Horizon, weren't you?
No, not at all. That's the only information I had with regard to Castleton. Civil case, as it says clearly, it's a civil case only. And I've discussed it with him as, Hugh, look, that's all I have. What do you want me to do? And he said, well, send what you have, and I have.
You've been asked to provide a copy of a witness statement in the Castleton case, and you provided a detailed narrative about the Misra case, didn't you?
No, because that's the only information I had. And I asked him, was it relevant? Do you want me to send it, or what do you want me to do? And he said, just send it as it is. And I did.
You started to understand, didn't you, that the Misra case was going to be a problem for you, didn't you?
It wasn't a problem for me because I wasn't dealing with it. Problem was in the sense that, as I say, the way we find ourselves where we are, obviously, I'm grieved that she had to suffer. The pain of her and the family had to suffer. And it was doubly, I'm grieved in the sense that there was mistakes being made and she had to go through it. That is what I'm feeling today. And I always felt when the Court of Appeal decided rightly what they did, the mistakes were made. I made the mistakes. We didn't have the systems and procedures. Certainly, on various stages, I wanted to drop the case, and it was a decision made by head of criminal law, Rob Wilson, to proceed with it. That is what it is. It is not what you are suggesting.
You knew, Mr. Singh,
No.
didn't you, that your knowledge of the receipts and payments mismatch bug was going to come under scrutiny? And what you were doing here, having been asked to provide a copy of the witness statement in Castleton, was to try and stand up to show why the result in the Seema Misra case was a good one.
Absolutely not. Not true.
Can we move on, please, to poll 0029 7710? This is essentially a state of play email sent to you on the 13th of July 2013. So this is between Second Sight interim report and Simon Clark advice. If we scroll down, please. In fact, just read it to yourself as we scroll down. So if we go back to the top, please. So it's an overview of where we are, sent by Rob Williams. Criminal law, these are the people dealing with the criminal law. Civil law, these are the people dealing with civil law. Media law, these are the people dealing with the media. Law aspects of the case, issues. Current and historic criminal case review, Cartwright-King. Review is now considering pre-separation cases. Cartwright-King notifying Post Office of cases where further disclosure is required as they are identified. Next conference call on Wednesday the 17th, Bond Dickinson to attend to facilitate coordination. Second site review, Bond Dickinson. And then over the page, Fujitsu, Bond Dickinson, Cartwright-King. Cartwright-King has raised an issue concerning Horizon evidence presented by Fujitsu during the criminal trials. So you knew by this time that Cartwright-King had focused on or was centering upon the issue of the evidence provided by Fujitsu in the course of criminal trials, didn't you?
No.
What did you understand that sentence to mean?
I don't remember coming across this. Just was that with my inquiries bundle papers? Was it? I don't remember that.
You agree that that's what it suggests on its face, that Cartwright-King are raising issues about the evidence presented by Fujitsu in the course of criminal trials?
Well, that's what it says, but as at that time, that didn't occur to me purely because whatever you're suggesting is not true. I didn't know about that.
I haven't suggested anything yet.
Well, I suggested,
but it's nice to know that
isn't
you
that
think
what
it would be not true.
Well, okay, fine.
Is that your default position when coming to give evidence in answer to the questions from counsel to the inquiry? If he suggests things, they're not true?
Well, no. I'm trying to listen to you, trying to understand where you're going, but I...
So why did you say what you're suggesting is not true when I hadn't made a suggestion?
Well, okay, but make the suggestion then.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. If we move on to the next paragraph, New Horizon expert. Hugh emailed new Fujitsu contact, Torsten Godseth. Cartwright-King to arrange to meet Torsten Godseth. Andy Parsons, Bond Dickinson, progressing new independent expert. You were aware, at least by the date of this email, weren't you, of the key consequence arising from it, the need to find a new expert witness?
I don't know what you... I don't understand what you're telling me or asking me.
On reading this email, you would have been aware of the need to find a new Horizon expert, wouldn't you?
What's the... I don't know. I mean, I'm not involved in... I'm not a decision maker. I don't make decisions as to what goes on. I don't know what you're suggesting or what you want me to answer. What is your question? I mean, I don't understand it.
By the time of this email, you would have been aware of the need to find a new expert on Horizon, wouldn't you?
What's the... as I said to you, I wasn't involved in this. The only time I think a new independent expert had been suggested was subsequently by legal counsel, Post Office counsel Susan, I think some later stage, but no, I'm not aware of the independency of the expert or anything of that nature at that stage. I wasn't involved in it, no.
Can we move forward to Mr. Clark's advice of the 15th of July, please? Poll 406357. This is Mr. Clark's advice of the 15th of July. And if we can go forwards, please, to paragraph 38. So I haven't got a note of the page number. Sorry, if we just stop there, this is where he sets out discussion. And if we just scroll slowly down, please. And then keep going, please. Let's stop there. By reason of the matters stated, it may reasonably be suggested that the conclusions set out immediately below are established. Since September 2010, Horizon Online had suffered at least two defects or bugs. One appears to have been resolved in early 2011, the other remained extant until at least January 13, and on one account will not be remedied until October 2013. Dr. Jenkins informed the Second Site Committee of the existence of the two bugs within the 12 months preceding publication of their interim report. Accordingly, Dr. Jenkins knew of the bugs, their history and resolution during the period 5th of October and the 3rd of April. If we scroll down, in fact, no need to read this, keep going, please. And over the page, and over the page. Conclusions, what does this mean? It means that Dr. Jennings has not complied with his duties to the court, the prosecution and the defence. And then 38, the reasons why Dr. Jenkins failed to comply with this duty are beyond the scope of this review. However, this is the position. One, Dr. Jenkins failed to disclose material known to him, but which undermines his expert opinion. This failure is in plain breach of his duty as an expert witness. Accordingly, his credibility as an expert witness is fatally undermined. He shouldn't be asked to provide expert evidence in any current or future prosecution. Similarly, in those current and ongoing cases where Dr. Jenkins has provided an expert witness statement, he should not be called upon to give that evidence. We should seek a different independent expert to fulfill that role. Notwithstanding the failure is that of Dr. Jennings and arguably of Fujitsu, this failure has a profound effect on Post Office and its prosecutions, not least by reason of Dr. Jenkins' failure. Material which should have been disclosed to defendants was not disclosed, thereby placing the Post Office in breach of their duty as a prosecutor. By reason of that failure to disclose, there are a number of now convicted defendants to whom the existence of bugs should have been disclosed but was not. And then reading on, there are a number of current cases where there's been no disclosure where there ought to have been. Just stopping there, in your witness statement to the inquiry, you say that you read this advice and you agreed with it. You say, I believe I agreed with Simon Clark's advice on these matters.
Well, he's a senior, knowledgeable, experienced practitioner. He's reviewed the papers. He's got the papers with more information than anybody. He's advised on it. Why would I disagree with it?
But you say in your witness statement you agreed with the advice.
Agreed?
Yes.
Yes. Well, I read it. I mean, agreed in the sense that it's right. I mean, if he's a discredited witness who's not given true evidence in court, how can you actually use him?
And so if we just go back up to paragraph 38 then. The reasons why Gareth Jenkins failed to comply with his duty are beyond the scope of this review. Do you agree that you were one of the very people capable of addressing the reasons why Gareth Jenkins may not have discharged his duties of disclosure?
No. No, that wasn't the case.
Do you agree that you were one of the very people capable of addressing the reasons why Mr. Jenkins may not have discharged his duties of disclosure because you had not told him about those duties?
That is true, but like I tried to explain to you in the last time I gave evidence, he came in as an experienced person who came to assist the defence expert. We notified the court and the defence, who accepted that we weren't going to rely on an expert but a Fujitsu employee. There was no person within the post office that we had, as to how to instruct an expert. We probably made mistakes, and there was somewhere along the lines somebody should have realised, and probably me, Rob Wilson, and Mr. Tedford, that he is an expert now. We should have notified him of his obligations, and we failed in that. I agree on that. Yes.
Before saying to yourself, I agree with this man's advice, did you think you should explain to anyone that you never gave Mr. Jenkins any compliant written expert instructions?
It didn't come to light. Like I said to you, it was one of those cases where nobody picked it up. I mean, you've got somebody like Mr. Tedford who's in court.
Mr. Singh, sorry to speak over you. We've moved on now.
Yeah.
We've moved on now, and somebody has picked it up.
Well,
And I'm asking what was done in response to somebody picking it up.
I don't know. I mean, I don't recall. I mean, I don't recall. I know there was obviously the Cartwright King picked it up, but it didn't occur to me. I don't know what happened because at that time I think reviews are taking place, and I was told because of the matters I've been involved in, previous prosecution while part of the criminal law team, they want to keep an independency of it. I should keep away from the reviews or anything that's happening surrounding it, and I did. But
before simply saying I agree with this advice, did you think that you ought to say to somebody, whether Cartwright King or otherwise, I hadn't explained to Mr. Jenkins his duty as an expert to give disclosure?
I mean, I probably didn't get the training, supervision, or whatever you like to call it. Maybe I wasn't well versed with what the expert's witness obligations were or how we meant to deal with it. Certainly, it is a failing or mistake on my part, I accept, but we didn't have the systems and procedures in place to deal with it. And that's why we, as a team, fell on. We should have been explained. Maybe it's something that we should have dealt with appropriately right from the outset. Nobody picked it up. And certainly here, I would have thought that somebody at Cartwright King, who are the criminal law specialist, would be able to highlight it to the people they're dealing with. Because these advices are now for the senior people. You've got Mr. Flemington and Miss Crichton. This is for them. I mean, I think we just get it second-hand or they pass it on, the advice. I don't know when I got it or when I looked at it. And certainly
Mr.
didn't
Singh,
come to me.
this advice is criticising in very strong terms Gareth Jenkins for not giving disclosure of, amongst other things, the receipts and payments mismatch bug, yes?
I don't know what... well, certainly criticising in the sense that he wasn't told of his obligations because we didn't understand the obligations ourselves.
I'm not going to go over it again. What Mr. Clark does is he highlights the passages from the second site report which disclose the two bugs, one of which is receipts and payments mismatch. Mm-hmm. He then says it's clear that Gareth Jenkins knew about those and he failed to give disclosure of them, yes?
I don't.
And then it comes to this part. It says the reasons why he failed to comply with these duties are beyond the scope, but the consequences are as follows. Yes?
Yes.
Did you not think, hold on, Mr. Jenkins did tell us about the receipts and payments mismatch bug. I got sent an email containing his report about it on the Friday before trial, and I sat on it.
I did not receive it. I didn't read it. I didn't print it. Like I told you, that's my evidence. And it didn't occur to me because it was the senior team dealing with it. And I was told to keep away from it purely because of the cases being reviewed were the old Royal Mail Group cases.
We see lots of investigation about what did we know about Falkirk. We see lots of investigation about what did we know about the local suspense account. Why is there not a similar inward-looking approach about what did we, in particular, what did Jarnail Singh know about the receipts and payments mismatch bug?
I think that's a question for the senior legal team and Cartwright King because they're dealing with it. Because at that stage, my role was completely different. And my role was basically in between the Post Office Limited and Cartwright King. And as and when my line manager, Hugh Flemington, needed input or specific advice.
On the last occasion, we addressed your refusal of defence requests for information about system faults in the course of the Sima Misra prosecution, yes?
I don't know which specific...
They wrote to you, Izzy Hogg wrote to you and said, can we have details of known system faults?
I don't recall.
Well, I'm not going to go back over the transcript of the last occasion. You'd refused disclosure of the known error log, hadn't you?
I didn't refuse anything. I mean, the way it was dealt, they came in and it was looked at by Mr. Tedford, Mr. Longman, Rob Wilson, and it was just the logs I think we had problem with because the commercial relationship or the contractual relationship between the post office and Fujitsu. I mean, there's nothing within my control. If it was within the first experience I've had of obtaining those logs were in the Misra case, because I've not dealt with any other cases. I didn't understand any of the issues or the problems regarding the problems we're dealing with here, because I had no experience. That was the first time I came into a lot of these documents. So I don't really quite understand what are you asking of me or what you want me to reply to you.
You knew that Mr. Jenkins wasn't a professional expert witness, didn't you?
Yes.
You knew that he had very little experience of giving evidence in court.
I didn't know that because he was actually dealing with a lot of the interim reports from the defence expert, plus I think Rob Wilson, I think it dealt with him on a number of occasions, not in court, but certainly as far as obtaining information or witness statements, because he was the one who actually somewhere said, well, look, you know, who suggested him, I think, somewhere along the line. But it was my first experience of dealing with an expert. And as I say, the first time I dealt with anything of that nature, last time I dealt with anything of that nature was probably about 20 odd years ago, in 1989-90, when I was working in private practice. But it obviously is a mistake on my part that I should have been more aware as to what the expert duties are. He came in as a experienced person, as you can see from the email from 5th of February 10, from Mr. Jones, the head of Fujitsu, and Izzy Hogg. I mean, she was only glad that you had somebody like that to explain the unique Horizon system to their expert. So,
Mr. Singh, did you adopt a strategy of lumping this all on to Mr. Jenkins?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I didn't lump anything on anybody. I mean, my fault was that mistake was that I did not pass this case on to somebody more experienced like Rob Wilson. But Rob Wilson reassured me I'm there in the background as and when you need me. I'm the decision maker. As and when you need something, come to me and I will deal with it. And you had somebody experienced like Mr. Tedford, who's an experienced and independent barrister who dealt with these cases for the Post Office and Royal Mail Group for a number of years. You got Mr. Longman, who's dealt with Fujitsu as to obtaining those information. But it's I'm a lawyer in the case. I should have been able to instruct him in a proper way at some stage when I found out that it should have been done. But it was overlooked because nobody picked it up. And I think even it went to court.
And Mr. Singh, all I'm asking is this is somebody picking it up. And what you didn't do was say, hold on, Post Office is at fault here too. I'm at fault here too. What you did is you covered up your own knowledge of the receipts and payments mismatch bug and let the false narrative continue that Mr. Jenkins had not given disclosure of it, didn't you?
No, that's further from the truth. That's not the case.
So can we take the second break until 12:15, please?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Can you see and hear us?
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Can we start by looking at poll 0015 5555? These are notes of Roderick Williams dated the 2nd of September 2013. You can see the date on the right-hand side.
Yes,
and
yes, I
Mr.
can.
Williams has told us that these are his notes in which he recorded a conversation with Martin Smith of Cartwright King of that date. Okay?
Yes, yes.
And can we look at the bottom left-hand side, please? And keep going, please. On the left-hand side, 6 lines up from the bottom, it says M. Smith. And then under the first arrow, don't think he's ever been advised of his duties. And then on the right-hand side, in the box, second line in, what were we doing to instruct GJ, which Mr. Williams told us meant Gareth Jenkins. So on the left-hand side, Mr. Williams told us that this was a reference to Gareth Jenkins. Don't think he's ever been advised of his duties. Did Mr. Smith ever discuss with you whether Mr. Jenkins had been properly advised of his duties?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
Did Mr. Smith ever discuss with you whether Mr. Jenkins had been properly advised of his duties?
I don't recollect we having that discussion. I don't think he told me, no.
Did Mr. Williams raise the matter with you?
I don't think so. I don't recall, but I don't think so.
Did either of them suggest to you that Mr. Jenkins had not been ever advised of his duties?
I don't recall. No, I don't think so, but I don't recall. I mean,
was it relayed back to you that Cartwright King appeared to have taken the view that Mr. Jenkins had never been advised of his expert duties?
I don't recall having that conversations with them.
Was that a matter not more widely discussed within the post office, to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge.
Was it a matter raised with or discussed with Mr. Altman, King's counsel?
I don't recall. I don't remember it. I mean, it may have done, but I didn't brief Mr. Altman. Bond Dickinson always did, and they provide the papers.
You were present at a conference with him, weren't you?
Yeah, in September. Yeah.
On the 9th of September, I think.
Yes.
2013.
Yes.
What we've seen so far is Mr. Clark saying Mr. Jenkins is at fault for all of these things. We've got a note here on the 2nd of September 2013 with Cartwright King seemingly saying, we don't think Gareth Jenkins has ever been advised of his duties. And Mr. Williams writing as an internal rhetorical question, what were we doing to instruct Gareth Jenkins?
What's the date of this?
2nd of September, so a week before the conference. Was this never raised with you? You're the solicitor in the case.
I don't think so.
In the Misra case, at which Mr. Jenkins gave evidence in court.
Yeah, well, I mean, the only thing I heard was that this is the only trial where he's actually given evidence. I know Cartwright
It was
King,
unique for that reason, wasn't it?
I know Cartwright King were using him, but I had lost contact them because they all the work was outsourced to them, and certainly Mr. Williams was busy doing his thing. I don't recall anybody coming up to me and say, look, you didn't instruct him properly or you didn't explain his obligations to him. I don't recall that, no.
Or was it the case that this was the truth that dare not be spoken? That we, the post office, are implicated in this too?
Maybe the post office is, but I mean, I don't know about the post office, but certainly I wasn't thinking like that, no.
And why weren't you thinking like that?
Well, I as I said to you, that it was a strange sort of setup. My role was basically, as you said, a postbox. I relayed information from one place to another. I wasn't really involved in this heavyweight litigation. Cartwright King on the one side, and you had Bond Dickinson on the other, and you had the post office in the middle instructing one or the other. So nobody raised it with me. Nobody, even my line manager, never mentioned it. To my knowledge, but certainly I don't recall anybody discussing it. No.
Thank you. That can come down. Can I move to my second topic then, which is the shredding of documents? We've heard a significant amount of evidence in relation to the circumstances in which Mr. Simon Clarke came to write his so-called shredding advice on the 2nd of August 2013. And so I'm going to be targeted in my questions to you. Can I start, please, with the conversation that began this? And can we look at paragraph 55 of your second witness statement, please?
Sorry. Mr. Bear, can I just have 5 minutes because my eyes are... So, can I got a problem with my eyes.
If you want a 5-minute break, Mr. Singh, please have one.
Yeah, please.
Right.
Sorry about that. Yeah, sorry.
So I think the best thing is if you leave the hearing room, Mr. Singh, everybody else should wait in the hearing room for 5 minutes. And if that doesn't prove to be enough, then we'll take it from there. But for the moment, you leave and have a short break. And then Mr. Beer will reconnect with me in 5 minutes and tell me what's good.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, can you see and hear us?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Singh, we were going to look at paragraph 55 of your second witness statement, which is on page 20.
Oh, sorry, second.
It's up on the screen for you.
Oh, okay.
And just the context is there had been the Wednesday weekly hub meetings set up. I think you say earlier that you weren't involved in setting them up. You weren't present on the first one on the 19th of July. You did attend on the 24th of July 2013. And paragraph 55, the third meeting, you say, I recall after the weekly meeting on the 31st of July, which you believe took place in the morning, Dave Posnett came to see me. He was seeking my guidance because he said John Scott had instructed him that typed minutes of the weekly calls should be scrapped and or shredded. I immediately felt very uncomfortable, and I told Dave Posnett very clearly he must not do that and he should tell John Scott the same. I recognised this was a serious issue, and I called Martin Smith at Cartwright King. I think I might have even done this when Dave Posnett was present, so he could talk to Martin Smith if needed, but I'm not certain of this. In any event, I relayed word for word what Dave Posnett had told me, and I believe Martin Smith's record is an accurate note. I believe I also spoke with Hugh Flemington about this, but this might not have been on the same day. So that's your recollection of the conversation with Mr. Posnett and what you did as a result, yes?
Yes, yes.
And so what Mr. Posnett told you, we can see from the fourth line, is that Mr. Scott had instructed that minutes of the weekly calls should be scrapped and or shredded. What was the context of that, that for the past, the minutes should be shredded, and for the future, they should be scrapped?
I don't know. I mean, all I know was that he came. He was a bit upset, or didn't, and he said, "Can I speak to you?" I said, "Yeah, certainly, David. No, not a problem." And then he said, "Look, we've been told by John Scott to scrap and shred minutes."
Were both of those things mentioned? One, you'll appreciate, I think, is backwards looking, i.e. shred what we've got.
Yes.
And the other is forward looking, that we're going to scrap, i.e. not do minute taking in the future.
I think so. I mean, I can't tell you, I don't know, 10 years on, but I certainly got Martin Smith. I quoted Mr. Posnett to him, and I said, "Look, Martin, do you want to speak to him?"
To come in a moment to
what
happened later when you spoke to Martin Smith. I'm just trying to understand from this evidence whether it's two things, one looking backwards and one looking forwards.
He mentioned both. Yeah.
Thank you. Presumably that suggestion was deeply concerning to you.
Yes, of course. I felt really uncomfortable.
Probably more than uncomfortable, because, if I can help you, the context, would this be right, would be the discussions concerned horizon faults and touched upon possible non-disclosure of horizon faults in past criminal proceedings. And the instruction was being given by the head of security, whose department had led on prosecution of sub-postmasters.
Yes, certainly, yes.
You could add a third thing into the context, that this time it was still the head of security, John Scott, making decisions on prosecutions, wasn't it?
From what I recall, yes. Yes, he was.
So those three things, we're looking at past non-disclosure in criminal proceedings, the instructions being given by the head of security, who's responsible for criminal proceedings, and he's the current decision maker. That would make this kind of instruction very serious, wouldn't it?
So that's the reason why I told David, you must not do it. I don't know, I probably swore at him, to be honest with you, and I said, what are you doing and what are you thinking? But I didn't quote him on that. But yes, I mean, it was serious. I mean, there's all sorts of things that come off it. There could have been all sorts of consequences. And that's probably why it prompted me to phone Martin there and then, so you can speak to David straight, there and then.
You say 3-4 lines from the end. In any event, I relayed word for word what Dave Posnett had told me, and I believe Martin Smith's record is an accurate note. I'm just going to see which record you're referring to there, where you say, I believe Martin Smith's record is an accurate note. Poll 0013 9745. Poll 0013 9745. This is his note of that call at 6 p.m. on the 31st of July. Is this the note you were referring to as being an accurate record?
I think more of Simon Clarke's advice, I think.
It was just in your witness statement you said that Martin Smith's record is an accurate one.
Because I think that's not really, that just says scrapped. But I think it's a conversation a little bit more than that. There was certainly shredding and probably a...
You'll see that this, under the detail, says, discussing disclosure issues, J. Scott has instructed that type minutes be scrapped. That only mentions what I've described as the future, i.e. what's going to happen from here on in. Are you sure you were additionally told that past minutes were to be shredded?
Certainly David Posnett mentioned shredding, yes.
Thank you. Can we move on, please, to poll 0032 5474? This is the following day, the 1st of August, 2013, at 8:10 in the morning. It's your email to Martin Smith with the subject disclosure in criminal cases. Martin, I know Simon's advising on disclosure. As discussed, can he look into the common myth that emails, written communications, etc., meetings, if it's produced, it's then available for disclosure. If it's not, then technically it isn't, ? Possible true of civil cases, not criminal cases. By this time, Mr. Clarke had been commissioned to write an advice, yes?
Yes, I think he told me that he was, and if I wanted him to deal with this as well, he'll place it before him.
Is this something else that was said in the conversation that you had with Dave Posnett that had emanated from Mr. Scott? Namely, if something is written down, then it's available for disclosure. If you don't write it down, then it isn't.
I think I said, where's that coming from, or something like that, and he said, Bond Dickinson are suggesting that or advising on that.
Well, that's slightly different. So my question is exactly what you just asked of yourself there. Where is this coming from? Is this coming from Mr. Scott through Mr. Posnett, or is it, as you've just suggested, coming from Bond Dickinson?
I think I said, well, why is this occurring? Why is he asking you to do that? And he said, it's Bond Dickinson are advising I think. And then I said, well, then I think I can't 100% be sure, but he either had the minutes with him of the first Horizon weekly call, or he subsequently forwarded it to me or something or other. And then I think there's mention of that in there about the, if it's, more or less what it says here. If it's minuted, it's disclosable. Or if it isn't, then it isn't. That type of thing. I can't remember 100% what it was, but.
And so, to be clear, Mr. Singh, what you're asking Mr. Clark to advise on here is something that didn't emanate from John Scott. It instead, on your understanding, came from Bond Dickinson.
The second bit is from Bond Dickinson. The first bit, I think, those matters are highlighted to me by Mr. Posnet. The minutes and also the advice by Bond Dickinson.
Mr. Singh, can I be very clear about this, what you regard as the first bit and the second bit? We've talked about the shredding and the scrapping.
Yes.
Which you relayed, you say, in your conversation to Mr. Smith.
Yes.
And then this is an add-on. You're saying the following morning, can Mr. Clark also address this, please? And I'm asking, where did this come from? Did this come from Mr. Scott, or did this, on your understanding, come from Bond Dickinson?
No, Dave Posnet pointed it out to me, and I said, well, where's that coming from? And he said, it's Bond Dickinson is advising in respect to disclosure.
Did he say who within Bond Dickinson was saying this?
I think Mr. Parsons.
Andrew Parsons.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can we move on, please, to poll 406799? And look at page 2. This is Mr. Clark's advice of the 2nd of August, the so-called shredding advice. And in paragraph 5, if we just scroll down a little bit, he sets out, as is good practice, the information upon which he is acting in order properly to advise. He says, at some point following the conclusion of the third conference call, it became unclear as to whether and to what extent material was either being retained centrally or disseminated. The following information has been relayed to me. The minutes of a previous conference call had been typed and emailed to a number of people. An instruction was then given that those emails and minutes should be and have been destroyed. The word shredded was conveyed to me. The second part of that would be accurate. You would have conveyed that to Martin Smith, wouldn't you?
I think, yes.
What about the part which says the minutes have been destroyed? Had you conveyed that to Martin Smith?
Certainly, I don't know about destroyed. I think shredded definitely, but I'm not so sure about destroyed.
I'm asking a slightly different question, Mr. Singh.
Sorry.
One is about an instruction having been given, whether using the language of destroyed or shredded. And then the second issue is, in fact, whether that's been carried into effect. Did you tell Mr. Smith that the instruction had been carried into effect?
I can't remember that. I mean, all I did was memory. David was there, and I think within minutes I phoned Martin Smith. I relayed it. I mean, I don't know, to be honest with you, whether it was the shredding or destroying has been carried out or not. But
okay, move on to the second point, Roman numeral 2. The information relayed to Mr. Clark was handwritten minutes were not to be typed and should be forwarded to Post Office head of security. Was that something that you told Mr. Smith about?
Certainly, I think David Posnet did say that, Mr. Scott wants them or something like that. But I mean, he needs them or he wants them or it needs to be forwarded to him. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know. But certainly, if that's what I said, that's more or less David Posnet's there, and I just relayed it to him, and I said, well, look, do you want to speak to David yourself?
So you think this is something that you would have passed on to Martin Smith?
Probably, yes.
Roman 3, advice had been given to Post Office Limited. That would tend to suggest that perhaps it was legal advice, which would be consistent with you saying that you've been told that this had come from Bond Dickinson, correct?
That's I think David Posnet pointed that out to me. It was one of the, it was in one of the minutes, weekly calls when I wasn't asked to attend.
Okay, advice had been given to Post Office.
Yeah.
Quote, if it's not minuted, it's not in the public domain and therefore not disclosable. If it's produced, it's available for disclosure. If not minuted, then technically it's not.
Yeah.
You agree that you did pass that on,
Yes.
in effect, via your email of the 1st of August?
It's in there, yes.
And then scroll down to 4, please. Some at Post Office do not wish to minute the weekly conference calls. Is that something that you passed on?
No, I don't think I passed that on, but certainly the last bit, I'm not sure about.
In terms of the consequences of all of this, that can come down, thank you. What was done to ask Mr. Scott what he had said and why he was saying it?
It was difficult for me because I think he was senior to me, and I think he reported to Susan. But my first concern was to document it and put it out to an independent person to make a record and to enforce it within the legal team or the post office, or how important disclosure is, to get it right. I don't know whether I spoke to Hugh or even Roderick. I don't recall now. But that's all I done. I mean, I didn't, follow it up with anything more than that.
To your knowledge, what was done to confront Mr. Scott with these issues?
I don't know whether Mr. Scott was confronted, but certainly I think I probably was more confronted than he was. Because I was told, why didn't you come to us first? I think Susan subsequently, I don't know when that conversation took place.
Can you just keep your head up and therefore your voice up? Please?
Yeah, I don't know when it was. I think, sometime after, I think Susan spoke to me and said, well, look, why didn't you come to us first rather than going to Cartwright King?
What was the context of that? Why didn't you come to us first rather than go to Cartwright King?
I don't know. I don't know, to be honest, what that was, but certainly, certainly the way I saw it, that it had to be dealt with, because I saw it as a very serious matter.
What was done to treat it as a very serious matter then?
Well, on my part,
other than passing the information to Simon Clark and him saying it's a bad thing.
Well, the thing is beyond my grade in that sense, but certainly I've highlighted it. I don't know who else I could have gone to.
Never mind you yourself, to your knowledge, was anything done at all as a result of this?
Not to my knowledge, no.
This indicated that the head of security, responsible for prosecutions, had a fundamental misunderstanding of the rules of disclosure. He had been the prosecution authority and the head of security for years. Why was nothing done?
Well, it was scary, really, because I think he was an ex-police officer as well, I think. So I don't know. I mean, to be honest, years go by, and but certainly at that time, maybe I should have done more.
This was a matter of post-conviction disclosure as well, wasn't it?
Yes. It was very, very serious, and I certainly, on my part, I think after speaking to David and Martin, I went outside and walked around the block a few times, because I just felt really, really, really annoyed with myself. And I think it was that point I was thinking about leaving. It was that serious, and I don't know. It was scary that anything like that can happen. And there's, especially when you've been advised on it, and we got all sorts of issues and problems within.
Was it so scary that, to your knowledge, the CCRC were told about it?
I think they were involved in it. I don't know whether they were told about it because it wasn't something that I got involved in. Certainly, there was a lot of advices being sought, whether about this matter or other issues. Post Office found themselves involved in at that stage, but it wasn't something that I was copied into or involved in any discussions or conversations.
So, to your knowledge, this issue was not raised with the CCRC?
Not to my knowledge, no.
You've told us that you sought advice from Martin Smith and Simon Clarke of Cartwright King in relation to the Post Office's criminal litigation disclosure obligations following the suggestion that Mr. Scott had instructed minutes be shredded and scrapped. Did you seek any equivalent advice from the Procurator Fiscal's office in Scotland?
No. I can categorically say no. I did not, sir. No.
Did you seek any equivalent advice from your Scottish agents, BTO?
No, I didn't.
Was Mr. Clarke's advice, this advice of the 2nd of August 2013, disclosed to either the Procurator Fiscal or your agents in Scotland, BTO, to your knowledge?
I certainly didn't. I don't know whether Cartwright King did or not.
To your knowledge, was there any discussion between the Post Office and those in Scotland in relation to this issue?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Thank you. Can I turn to my third topic, please, which is the Post Office's prosecution strategy? Do you agree that there came a time in mid-2012 when decisions were being made as to whether the Post Office should keep prosecuting cases?
I don't know. Can you see what you're specifically referring to?
Okay, I'll take you to a document, Poll 0018-0229. If we look at the foot of the page, thank you, an email to you of June 2012 from Susan Crichton in the case of Yetminster. Jarnail, if we decide not to go ahead with criminal prosecution, are there any risks for Post Office? Yes, and then your reply at the top. Susan, and I'm going to read this as it's written.
Yeah.
As a prosecutor, Post Office Prosecution Limited must be seen to exercise its judgment in all cases which give rise to potential criminal proceeding to promote effective, consistent and fair decision-making. If not, a third-party examination of our cases by, say, Director of Public Prosecution may result in withdrawal of our ability to prosecute. Decision not to prosecute cannot be kept secret. Quote, everybody will find out what we are doing, end quote. This may open Post Office to criticism and undermine faith in Horizon. This U-turn will be exploited by potential third-party sub-postmasters alliance. It may send a green light for defendants to get hold of their Member of Parliament and result in copulation. We need to send a message that post offices cannot be used as a bank. We hold a robust stance. Any wrongdoing will be investigated, prosecuted, and money recovered. But was it the Post Office's policy to bring prosecutions against sub-postmasters to, quote, maintain faith in Horizon?
No, I don't think so, sir.
Why were you concerned that if a decision not to prosecute was taken, it may undermine faith in Horizon?
I think Susan Crichton asked me for a general advice.
Well, no, she didn't. She said, if we decide not to go ahead with criminal prosecution, are there any risks?
Yeah, those are the two risks. I was asked, look, as far as the criminal aspect of the prosecution is concerned, we're getting advice from Cartwright King, but you need to have broadened your advice to look through the business lens So that's why I divided into two bits. Firstly, the legal risk that when you're making a decision, it's got to be a consistent, fair decision.
I'm not asking you about that at the moment.
Oh, sorry.
I'm asking you about the second paragraph, which says a decision not to prosecute ... may open the post office to criticism and undermine faith in Horizon. And I'm asking.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Beer, but I just want to understand the context. My reading of the email from Ms. Crichton is that it is confined to a question as to whether the prosecution relating to the Yetminster branch should go ahead.
Just one, yeah.
Am I right in thinking that? Because obviously that may impact upon Mr. Singh's reply.
So that's my understanding, that Mr. Singh should give the evidence.
Fine.
Was it your understanding that the question was asked and therefore failed to be answered by reference to not prosecuting the sub-postmaster at the Yetminster branch?
I think so. I think she...
Right.
Yes. Well, I think it was just, Miss... I can't remember the lady's name, yeah.
Okay, so looking at that second paragraph then, you say a decision not to prosecute ... may open the post office to criticism and undermine faith in Horizon. Did you see prosecutions as a way of maintaining faith in Horizon?
No.
Why did you write that?
I don't know. Decision not to cannot be kept secret. I don't recall exactly what I was thinking. All I was thinking about. You've got to have a consistent approach. You can't just have one case and decide not to prosecute, not to go ahead.
You deal with consistency in your first paragraph.
Yeah.
Here you're dealing with a separate issue, Mr. Singh, which is if we don't prosecute, it may undermine faith in Horizon. And I'm asking, did you see prosecutions as a way of maintaining faith in Horizon?
No, I think this case was one of those MP cases that's referred to the post office, and I don't know what discussions I had with her. She mentioned that we need to, draft a letter mentioning the Horizon system. So I'm trying to give a comprehensive reply, I suppose, dealing with each and individual bit of what questions she's posed to me.
What did the post office regard it as important to maintain faith in Horizon?
Well, if they didn't have faith in Horizon, they couldn't really prosecute, could they?
Did you regard it as important to maintain faith in Horizon?
It's critical, isn't it? I mean, all our post office prosecutions are aligned on Horizon, but as to what I had or not had, it wasn't relevant.
Did you receive instructions from managers, including senior managers, about the importance of protecting the post office brand or the reputation of post office or the reputation of Horizon?
No, sir, I don't have very much contact within the senior management. I think the only contact...
Or from any other person?
No, I think the only persons I dealt with here in the Post Office Limited were Susan and Hugh. I didn't have any wider contact within the business, no.
Why was a decision whether to continue with the prosecution being taken by reference to issues such as the undermining of faith in Horizon, the potential exploitation of it by JFSA, and the sending of a green light to defendants to get hold of their Member of Parliament, rather than the evidential strength of a case against the sub-postmaster?
No, I think it's always is the evidential test. I mean, we as the prosecutors have got to apply that, and the two-tier test, as you know. But here, I think we're dealing with one case, and I've been asked to address it. It wasn't anything more than that.
Why was it important to send a message to sub-postmasters that post offices cannot be used as a bank?
That is, from my recollection, is I think is a reference to speaking to somebody within the business, or I've been referred to something within the business where, I don't know whether it's some sort of statement. I think somebody referred me to, and that's why it's put in quotes. It's not, because I've been told that.
Who said the post office can't be used as a bank?
Sorry?
Who said the post office can't be used as a bank?
I think it's either somebody referred me to some literature, because the thing is, I've been asked, look, your advices need to be a bit more broad, so you've got to look at it, the business from a business lens. And I think what's the advice? It's 7th of June, so it's earlier on. And I've gone and spoken to somebody, and I think they referred to me some literature where I've taken that out. And that's
this is somebody else speaking here, not you, then?
It's actually a literature somebody's referred me to. That's why it's in quotes. It's probably I've taken it out from some,
Was this a commonly held view within the post office at this time?
No.
Sub-postmasters use the post office as a bank?
No. I mean, as I say, it may be naive of me to put it in, but
Why did you put it in? Why did you ally yourself to this sentiment, which you say was in some literature?
Because what I wanted her to advise to mean is that this is a legal side of things, and this is the business. It's just at that time I decided to split it in that way. It's easier for me to explain it, and it was a way of doing it. I mean, it was nothing more than it wasn't more than that.
At the end of the sentence above, it may send a green light for defendants to get hold of their member of Parliament and result in copulation. Presumably, you meant capitulation.
Yeah. Sorry, probably yes, of course.
Why did you think that stopping one case might result in capitulation?
I don't know why I thought that, but
Who would be capitulating?
I can't explain it to you now, but certainly at that time I thought about the advice, and I think I even spoke to one or two people saying, look, maybe Hugh Flemington, I think I said, look, Hugh, you said that you want me to look at it from the business lens. What do you think? Is it okay for me to send that on? And he said, well, yes. I mean, that's the sort of way you need to sort of think of it, not just from the legal side of it, because that bit we can get from Cartwright King. So there, it's more of splitting.
So would it be the post office capitulating?
I don't know.
Who else could it be?
I can't.
Try and help us, Mr. Singh.
Can't help you on that yet.
No, try again, please. Who else could it be capitulating?
It's advice earlier on in my transfer to the Post Office Limited. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have considered it and just left it at the the first bit, saying, look, this is from the legal point of view. If we're going to prosecute, that you've got to be open, you've got to be fair, and you've got to be consistent. You can't just take one case and discontinue it. There's got to be justification for it.
You don't stop there, do you?
Sorry?
You don't stop there and say it's important that we adopt a consistent approach, that there's uniformity of decision-making across our cases. We can't take into account extraneous factors. What you go on to do is list a series of factors that you say would be in play if the prosecution in the Yetminster branch was discontinued, don't you?
So we're looking at 7th of June 2012.
You were the only criminal lawyer in Post Office Limited then, weren't you?
Well, we got a Cartwright King on the sidelines as well.
No, in the Post Office, you were now called head of criminal law, weren't you?
Well, everybody is now at the moment, but they weren't at that time.
Sorry?
They are now, but they weren't calling me head of criminal law at that time. But yeah, I mean, yes, I was the only criminal lawyer there, yes.
Is this how you felt about prosecution of sub-postmasters
No.
in June 2012?
No, so that's not.
Is this a window into your mind?
That's
In
not.
June 2012?
No. As I said to you, she's asked for me a very general advice, the risks to the post office. And as I said to you, that I've been asked by head of legal, Hugh Flemington, look, you know, your advice needs to be more broad. You've got to not only do the legal side of it, but also to look at it from a business lens, and that is the business lens. And as I said to you, that is, what I've quoted is from within the business.
Was it, that can come down, thank you. More generally, was it important to the post office, as you understood it, that there should be no public blaming of the Horizon system?
No, that was a one-off advice. I mean, that advice standalone. I mean, on the what I've been asked to do.
Can we look at poll 0032 5434? And look at page 2, please. And scroll down, please. Thank you. An email from Martin Smith to Rachel Panda in the case of Post Office against Dixon. Please see attached letter from defence solicitors. Seems case capable of resolution without trial. Scroll up, please. And keep going. Rachel Panta sends that on to you. Please see attached letter. Mr. Dixon is currently facing a single count of fraud. Copy of the indictments attached. Counsel Will Saunders from 3 Temple Garden Chambers is instructed in this case, which is listed for trial at Exeter on the 12th of August. Steve Bradshaw is the officer in the case. How would you like me to respond to the defence solicitor's letter? Would false accounting be acceptable on condition that the £14,000 is repaid in full? Please advise accordingly. And then up, please. Your reply, Rachel, the guilty plea to false accounting offered by the defence is acceptable to the Post Office, providing the defendant accepts as part of his guilty plea in writing that he does not challenge the integrity or blame or criticise the Horizon system and all losses and costs are paid. Why was it a necessary part of the guilty plea that the defendant should accept as part of that guilty plea in writing that he doesn't challenge the integrity of Horizon or blame or criticise Horizon?
That's been the established position of the Post Office, or the from position from Royal Mail Group Limited. I think that position has been established by Rob Wilson as head of criminal law, and that's a continuation of that. And also, as far as having it in writing, is the facts agreed between the defence and the prosecution, so that you don't have a dispute on the facts. Then there'll be another hearing within the hearing, a Newton hearing, I think it's called. So that's just to clarify the both parties' position. It's beneficial to the defence as well, because
how is ruling out the possibility of Horizon being to blame for false accounting beneficial to the defendant?
I'm just reiterating or emphasising the position as it is. That's what the established position has been for a number of years. And here, it's been carried on to the Post Office Limited. I mean, our position hasn't changed. It's just all I'm doing is, look, this is the way we've been dealing with it. But certainly from the factual, evidential side of it, I think I have, in the future, I have said to them, look, you're the solicitor in the case, you got the papers, you review it, and you make a decision in light of your instructions from the investigation team and the decision maker. I think that's one of the first ones that's come to me And I've reiterated the position of the Post Office Limited.
Who told you about the Royal Mail Group and then Post Office policy that a defendant must accept as part of their guilty plea that they do not challenge the integrity of or blame or criticise Horizon?
I think that's Rob Wilson. I think there's emails.
By this time, wasn't it the case that a number of defendants had previously tried to make a plea on the basis of Horizon being at fault?
I can't recall now, to be honest.
If they had, would that not have caused you or anyone at Post Office to think, well, hold on, maybe the system isn't as robust as we've been told?
Well, certainly now, I didn't realise that, from what the inquiry's evidence is, and I've seen that it is quite painful to hear that people have been forced into accepting false accounting offences as a lesser offence. Yes, I mean, now in hindsight or looking back now, it was wrong, and maybe we shouldn't have, that shouldn't have been the policy. We shouldn't have done it that way. But that is what it was at that time.
Weren't you instrumental in deploying that wrongful conduct?
I'm not a decision maker. I think I've emphasised to you before. I'm the only criminal lawyer there. They refer the matters to me, but it's a matter. If there is something that needs a decision, I refer it to Hugh Flemington, who's my line manager.
You don't do that here, do you?
Sorry?
You are the decision maker here, aren't you?
No.
You don't refer it on to anyone else. Your agents come to you for instructions and you give instructions.
They're not my agents. They're agents for the Post Office Limited. I don't know what their remit is, but certainly here, the young lady is not a solicitor. I think Martin Smith is a solicitor in the case, and she would obviously refer it to me. And I think at some stage I would have had discussion with Martin, or he should have come back to me, or even the Steve Bradshaw, and I would say, look.
Where's the record of any of that, as opposed to this email exchange, which really clearly and simply sets out your approach?
This is not a decision. This is the emphasis of what the stance or the established position is for the Post Office since years and years.
Why don't you say to Mr. Bradshaw, Steve, instructions on this, please, before I revert to Cartwright King?
I think if you look at another email where I've actually said that, I've said to Andy Cash, I think, comes to me somewhere. I think, you've enclosed with the inquiry papers on that, and he said, and I've gone back and said, what's your views on it?
Oh, there are definitely emails in which you do go back to your client and say, can I have instructions? I'm asking you on this occasion why you didn't.
I don't know. I mean, I don't recall. Maybe it's earlier on. Maybe we're embedding embedding a different sort of way of dealing with things. But certainly, Andy Cash, and I think
this is nearly a year after separation.
Yes, but maybe it's one of the first ones that come through the system or through the process. But there, over a period of time, I have said to them, you're the lawyers, you've got the papers, I haven't got the papers. You need to make a decision in discussing it with the investigation officer or the decision maker. But at that time, all I've done is highlighted this is what we need to do if the plea is acceptable. It's got to be in writing, and that's what we normally endorse. We have that in writing, so the facts are clear that both parties agree to.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Would that be an appropriate moment to break until 2 p.m, please?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you very much, sir.